of
You're
paid
live.
lunch
Yeah, thanks.
equity,
Yeah.
which is the chart and the tool that USDA says that we must use to figure out what our prices should be for next year.
Okay.
So if you have that chart up or
I
have
do.
it, I'm going to
Well, I have the flow chart up.
try to walk you through the numbers of the flow chart to where we
Did you
need
put
to go.
these numbers in here? The 251 and the 240?
No, this came directly from USDA, from the Department of PDE.
Okay.
And this is a new thing.
This is
They've never mandated
right.
anything to do with our meal pricing before.
Right.
So this is new.
Right.
That healthy.
This is part of that healthy, Hunger
Yeah.
Kids Act.
Right.
So, if you follow the flow chart, USDA does not have the new spreadsheet out on their website, but you can do it manually, which is what I did to see where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
The second there is they're telling us what the difference between the federal reimbursement and the paid lunches are, where everyone's target is, which is the 251 for 12-13.
So we're supposed to be at 251. Why are they deducting 20?
That's the paid lunch. You take the federal reimbursement that we get, which is the 277, minus the paid lunch reimbursement gets us to the 251.
Okay.
Following the flow chart, we have to determine the average price. I think we're all set. Got it.
Average price for paid lunches.
For 11-12. And what you're to do with that is you actually,
They give you a tool.
you have a tool, and the numbers that you put in there is for October of 2011.
Uh-huh.
We have the total number of paid lunches that we had in the district.
Okay.
So you take that number times the number times the cost of each meal, whether it's elementary or secondary. The total paid lunches for just the month of October came to $55,940 to round.
$55,940 for October of 2011.
Right. And
Using
then,
this formula.
Yes. And then I emailed everything.
No, I'll be fine. I'll open the email here.
And then you have to divide that by the total number of paid lunches, which was 27,840. That gets me to a price of $2.01. That's our average price for paid lunches. It's $2.01. If you follow the flow chart over, it says compare the average price of paid lunches to the difference between the federal reimbursement for paid lunches. Ours obviously is less. So it says determine the necessary action. Average price less than difference. You're on the right-hand side of the flow chart. We have to increase the revenue by 2% plus 2.18. That is given to us by the state as well as the federal. Like, that's what we have to do.
So, excuse me, so in other words, we're raising it 4.18?
We have to raise
Okay.
our meal price a percentage.
Okay.
It's a 4.18 on top of the 201.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay,
thank you.
I was coming. That's
It's not
where I was coming
compounded?
next.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so that's my question.
So you take the $2.01 times the 4.18 percentage, and you get 0.08 cents.
Okay.
So it's saying for 12-13 that we have to take the 201 plus the 8 cents is 209.
Okay.
So for 12-13, our average price has to be at least 209.
Okay.
Currently, we're at the 201.
Okay. Okay.
So with the tool that they give you, you use the paid lunches that we had in October. So we have a concrete paid lunches number that we have to use. Then you can play with the dollar amount of the lunches. Currently, elementary is $1.95. Secondary is $2.05. The tool allows you to manipulate those numbers till you can get to the 209. Okay? To get to the 209, the recommendation would be to go from $1.95 for elementary to $2, and to go from $2.05 secondary to $2.15.
Okay.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum that we. That's the minimum that we absolutely have to do. That minimum to get that average to the 209 to meet the federal guidelines.
Okay, now, that's just for year one. They gave us like a 5-year
Well,
benchmark too,
in the
right?
beginning of the act, they did.
Yeah.
They have now revised it that this is the calculation that you follow each year
I
in this
see.
flow chart. And each year, the second item in the flow chart, the 251 will change because your federal reimbursement changes and sometimes your paid lunch reimbursement changes. Plus, the increase of the 2% plus the 2.18. It's always the 2%, but that 2.18 always changes every year as well.
And you're always using October as the...
That is correct. That's
Okay.
the month. That's kind of the month we use for everything with food service.
Can I ask you a question? These are only student lunches, they're not like
Mm-hmm. That is
faculty
correct.
lunches?
Right.
Those
This
are
is
excluded.
just plain old student lunches
Okay,
for
so
the
no
month of
visitors,
October.
no faculty, none of that stuff?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Now, for a minute, I also sent out a spreadsheet of the Berks County school districts and what all the lunch prices are for this year. And that's kind of why I have John here. We really are thinking that we want to recommend going higher than the $2 and the $2.15 that I stated. Some of the reasons are we are very low in the county. Okay, that's one of the reasons. The second reason is we need to get closer to that 251, and if we keep doing the minimum, we're never going to get there. I mean, with where we're at now. And the third thing, and the reason that I did have John here, is with the new Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, there are a lot more mandates on what the food is that we're going to be serving. So the cost of the food is going to go up dramatically. And our thought was, if we do a little bit more than required this year, then hopefully next year we wouldn't have to do like a 25-cent or a 50-cent increase. We can do
So-
more minimal ones
Let me just make sure I understand. So we still need to get up towards 251? Is that what it-
eventually.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, that number is going to change every year.
That's what I was going to say. It's going to be a moving target as well.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
originally they said, the first interim rule that came out said, within 5 years, you need to be at the level.
At the national
at that-
average.
which is the
at
information
that
I had when we had our last
Right.
meeting.
Since that meeting, it's been revised after the final ruling came out.
Mhm.
Now, you don't necessarily ever have to get there, but you always have to do this, because even if you're there right now, next year you won't be. So, because the reimbursement rates are gonna go up. So theoretically, no one will ever, there'll be a time when every school district in the entire country is gonna have to raise their price annually to get,
This
Well, the other thing
ruling
is, unless you're on the high side of the average,
right?
then you're always going to be adjusting up to the average. Because every time everybody adjusts up, the average moves up every year.
This is basically causing districts to making them raise prices.
Sure,
of the-
absolutely.
I have a
the-
question. Is this the national, or is it based on regions of the country, or is it just like, I mean,
Well,
let's
it's
face it, it
not-
costs
This is
more,
the
it costs more in
national-
California to live. So is their lunch prices in with this, or is
It's
it
not-
is it segregated by
It's not necessarily a national average. The USDA gives
two
us,
regions?
they give us, this year they give us $2.77 for every free lunch that we serve.
And that's nationally.
That's not across the,
Oh, so
across the
it doesn't
country.
matter, all
Doesn't
50
matter
states,
where you
okay.
are. They give us 26 cents for every paid lunch that we serve. When
National.
you subtract those two numbers,
You get two-
that's what they want your paid lunch to be.
Okay.
They want your paid lunch price
Okay.
plus their reimbursement to
Yeah.
equal that free reimbursement.
Because we shouldn't be
Correct.
getting federal dollars that we can use for
But-
something
but-
else. I mean, that's the
Right,
point.
exactly.
But I understand that, but
It should be going towards lunches.
my
Exactly.
question is, so there isn't a geographic, what kind of
No.
curiosity question?
That's
So
for
you're
everyone.
comparing California to, say, Alabama?
Right.
Okay, that was my question.
That's for every state.
Wow.
So do you guys have a recommendation?
Well, we do. I mean, we would like to go back to the beginning. Right now, we're at $1.95 for elementary. We would at least like to go to $2.10 for elementary.
Mm-hmm.
For secondary, we're at $2.05. We would at least like to go to $2.20. That
What would that
That
turn our
rec-
average into?
$2.15.
And
So you're, again, I'm sorry, so you're saying 15 cents for elementary, 25 cents for,
15 cents for each.
15,
15
15
for-
cents each,
Okay. I'm
elementary and secondary.
yeah, and the reasons, the big reasons for that, the USDA has said that the because of the changes in the regulations, for instance, the new regulations starting next school year, currently the students, in order to count the meal as reimbursable meal, they need to take 3 of the 5 fruit components. So a meat or meat alternative, a fruit, a vegetable, a milk, and a grain. They could take any 3 and it's considered a meal. Next year, one of those things must be a fruit or a vegetable. So I tried to figure out how many kids were not taking that, were taking just a grain, a meat, and a milk, maybe, and not taking that. It's very hard to, unless I stood up there and just with a clicker. But I'm figuring probably there's about 20% of the lunches that don't have that. So next year they will. So that's going to
Increase costs.
Typically, the USDA came out and said the difference between all these things is going to increase food cost by about 12 cents. That's over and above the normal inflation rate for food. So the CPI, obviously the reimbursement rate usually goes up by the CPI. But that just covers the increase in the food that we're currently selling, not the additional food that we're going to need to sell. The other big thing is the grain component. Next year, 50% of all of our grain products must be whole grain, which is about 4 cents a portion higher than a regular white hamburger roll or whatever.
Well, so what you've listed just so far between the vegetables and the whole grain seems to me as this may not be enough.
Well, that's the vegetables and the whole grain, that's what makes up that 12 cents.
Yeah.
Now, we do also get the other negative thing is taking us the other way. The state is eliminating the school nutrition incentive next year, which
Proposed governor's budget. Yeah.
Right, which we currently participate in that we have a standard of what our a la carte items have to meet a certain standard. If they do, we get additional 2 cents for every meal. If that goes away, that's 2 cents. Now we're 14 cents higher in cost.
Well, that's I guess that's where I was sort of going with this. I mean, you're giving yourself a margin of a penny.
Right, and well,
I don't think that's enough, because if you even if you give yourself a 5% margin of error, you're.
I mean, it would certainly be advantageous for us to go higher if we can, because this increase in the meal price will only cover the food, so
Doesn't cover
it won't
labor.
cover the additional cost of labor either. So that would just be. I kind of sorted this Berks County list
Yeah.
just to get an average of where we are. We have historically we can afford to be lower. We don't have to be the highest in Berks County because Sodexo gets the deals on our food. We get higher discounts on our bulk purchasing. Our food costs can be lower, so we can afford to. We don't need to be up in the top tier, but
I'm just saying though, even at 215, you're still in the bottom. You're still in the bottom 25% of schools.
Right.
Most of the schools are up at 240, 245, and above for a high school lunch.
Again, if you're good, I'd ask that you probably push 20 cents for both. At least this. If you do 25, I think you're going to be like a little major grumbling. But again,
And we appreciate that suggestion, but
here's
we
the other thing:
just
is
didn't
we're
feel-
being again, and we use the word, we're being forced to do this.
At
Another one of
least
those,
a little bit.
Yeah, we're being forced to do it anyway. We might as well do again. 25 might be huge. 20%, 20 cents.
Well,
might go swallow.
Maybe you do. Maybe at the elementary level, you do maybe it's 20 cents at the elementary level, and it's 25 cents at the secondary school level.
Correct.
I don't know, which meals do you sell more of?
high school.
But there's remote.
Secondary, in the example that I gave you for October, secondary, well, that's just paid lunches. That's not really a good example,
We
I
do, the secondary schools do more lunches than the elementary.
So, I mean, that's where then you're going to make up, if there's an issue and you're running short
I
on
don't
one,
know.
you're making up more on the other.
Again, I
They
think,
also have the most labor there, so.
I think you have to go at least 20, if not do 20,
I
25. I don't.
think we would be happy with a 20 and then a 25. I mean,
And
We
again,
just want to
we
be
are-
careful, I mean.
What
I
does that
wanna-
get you in terms of the new average price?
If
Do
you,
Should have to go ahead and recap it.
yeah, because
you have the numbers? I mean, I could probably just do it in Excel.
the 25 and 20 is gonna help us the following year also, because the following.
Well, it's going to be
year-
less of a jump.
It's gonna, well, and the following year, the grain regulation is to 100%, which is gonna,
Well,
I
maybe
mean,
it's,
so.
maybe it's not less of a jump.
So we're
We're
trying
making the
to-
same
Correct,
jump.
correct.
I don't wanna,
No, I,
the 15 cents would
Bare
have just
minimum.
covered us for the food cost. If we go up a little bit higher, we're gonna set
Well,
ourselves up
again,
better for next year.
I think elementary school, you kind of throw them bones, so to speak, do 20 and 25.
if my math is right, about 223.
So then,
I mean, that's, if you figure it's 180 lunches in a year, it's $36.
Yeah,
And John
exactly.
It's like,
actually
it's not
did
like
do that
you're
math.
breaking someone's bank.
no, I agree with that.
$36.
I agree. And you're spread over 8 months, so again,
Right.
you're
And
talking
they don't
$4 a
necessarily
month.
buy every
We're
single
talking
lunch
$4 to
every
$5
single
a month. Yeah,
day.
kids
I mean,
will buy,
I
kids
think we're
pack.
getting way too far into the weeds here.
No, I do
whereas-
too. I think you do at least 20, 25 cents.
I mean, for one particular family, it's $36, but for a school district by, over 4,000 students, it could be several
Correct.
thousand, $10,000 or something to that effect.
I
So,
I would go 20, 25. Or at least 20, 25. That's, throw that on the table.
I'm happy to bring back 215 for elementary and 230 for secondary if the committee supports it for the board.
yeah, what do you think, Ms. Hamel?
You said 215?
And then 230.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have a terrible time the following year if you don't raise it the proper amount this year.
What is, and this is not doable, but what is faculty lunches?
$3.
Okay. Did we ever raise those? I'm just asking
We
the
did,
question.
we did, last year, we raised 10 cents across the board for breakfast, all
Even for
breakfast,
faculty and stuff?
lunch, and for faculty and,
Again, not to be rude, if you work outside of here, $3 a lunch is.
Is nothing.
$3.50 is the average, and
I
there's
was
some
gonna
of you
say,
that are
I'm not trying to-
$4.
I'm not trying to like kid everybody,
$5,
but not to be
$5 in
rude, You go
Antietam.
through there for $3, that's a cheap lunch.
and we're 51 cents below the average
And
adult lunch price.
correct, and the other
Maybe we
thing-
should be
is it on
raising the
here? I'm
adult-
sorry, is it on here? Oh, it
Yeah.
is on here, I'm sorry, I apologize.
We can certainly.
I
take that.
would think that you would throw at least a quarter into that one too.
Well, yeah,
Well,
Julie
should we
does
be
have a
raising
point.
all
If
of
we
these?
don't
That's what I'm
raise
saying.
the
If you
adult,
don't do that and
You raise
people
the student.
find out
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you've raised
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I think you should
don't
raise it.
know.
I think you should raise it a quarter. I mean,
I
not to
think
be rude. You go
I
to most
think
places, you get a bowl of soup.
Yep.
Take
You
a bowl
can't
of soup
even get a bowl
and a
of soup
soda.
for-
You're at least $3.50 to
I mean, I think you
$3.75.
oughta be
They
raising
get a
that thing
full
to-
meal. They get right. It's a full lunch
Yep.
meal.
What about the breakfast? It says breakfast adult $1.65.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be $2.
Is that for
That's an adult, the $1.65 is an adult breakfast.
$1.65?
now just as a caveat,
I'd be eating here every day.
this new guideline and rule.
It's cheaper than Dunkin' Donuts.
I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, a
Seriously,
donut costs you more than $1.65.
My Starbucks in the morning cost me $4, and that's only
I mean,
that's only a
it's-
grande.
This
And I
isn't-
think
That's
that
my
it's-
choice.
We've just historically just
I
been
would.
on the low end.
I
and
would.
We just kind of
Sorry.
nickel
I
this
think
year, 10 cents this year.
I
The
agree.
first
with
year I was shooting.
Well, I'm looking across the
so-
board here.
I
Everything.
really don't think you have a choice. It's,
What time is
it's
school?
like it's,
What time is school open?
No, you
Seven-
Can I rent my Birdsboro on my
For
way to
you,
work?
$1.
Well,
Can
am
I
I
swing my
correct in
Birdsboro on
we
my way
are
in?
not recommending increasing breakfast prices at this point?
I mean, the breakfast, there is additional requirements for breakfast also with there's a new expanded meat or meat alternative requirement. So I was looking at, we're not as far behind in the breakfast area, but
Do you want to do like?
And
10
there's no mandate on the breakfast
There is
as
no
there is on the
mandate.
How
lunches.
about like 10 cents across the breakfast and then 20, 25 for the other two?
Well, I'm thinking
Again, I don't think you want to do it, again, I'd ease the breakfast in there. I don't-
On average, we're at least 15% below average on every single one of these items.
Then do, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 cents.
Now,
I think the adult breakfast, you go to $2,
Adult lunch.
and the adult lunch, you go to at least $3.50 to what the average is. If you do both of those two things, $3.50 and $2 on a breakfast adult and a lunch adult, you're at least, now you're at the average for the county.
But be careful, again, your comment is be careful, we don't pick on the faculty. Of
No.
district.
Her point was if we don't raise
I know, I'm saying, but
faculty-
in the other respect, if we only raise the breakfast on
Well,
the
wait a
adult,
minute.
breakfast on the lunch,
The faculty,
again.
But you know what? You can always say on the lunches, we're getting
Oh, it's still cheaper.
we're getting
well,
reimbursement.
and the reason, I
Correct.
mean, the
We're
reason
not from
that
the
the
teachers.
faculty is so much higher is there's no reimbursement money out of it.
That's what
Well,
I'm
correct, I
saying.
understand that. Okay,
That's a
so
straight
you
cost.
want to go to 350 in the adult lunches?
I think $3.50 for adult lunches and $2 for breakfast.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
think.
it's still cheap.
Where else are you going to go get lunch for $3.50?
Well, not that, you're eating 2 meals for $5.50. I mean, when you think about it, you could eat, you can't, that sounded like.
You go to a vending
not to be-
machine
no,
and
that
get
sounded
a-
like
and get
how
something
you
to
go
drink, it's
McDonald's, and it'll
$1.25.
cost-
I mean,
two people
come on.
McDonald's will cost you almost
But I
$15.
think our answer to the faculty would be the student lunches are reimbursable with.
Correct, but the other thing is, like I said, you can't
With
go to
federal
McDonald's
state
for,
money.
for under.
I don't think the
6 or 7
faculty is
bucks.
going to complain at all about paying $3.50 for
I
a
don't see how
lunch.
they can. I agree with that one. I'm sorry. I think that's.
I mean, come on. I mean, this
Of
is,
course, I'm going to get
You
it
can
at
just go,
home.
oh, well.
yeah, don't buy your lunch here. Brown bag it. You know, if you think you can get your lunch somewhere else.
My wife's going to kill me.
Still
I
getting a
just
deal.
find this incredible.
No, you can't go out. You can't go to the Italian Delight for.
Okay, so what's the recommendation then for breakfast? We're currently at $1.15 for elementary and $1.20 for secondary.
10 cents.
10 cents more,
10
maybe a
cents
nose,
across?
And that would include the adult breakfast.
and then the adult breakfast.
Well,
moves
the adult
$2.
breakfast is going to $2.
$2. Correct. Okay.
All right, so looking at this chart here, let's just, it's 225, is that what we were saying for the,
$2.20.
No, for the high school
$2.30.
lunches. No.
230, 230,
Yeah.
$2.15.
Yeah.
215.
Adult would be $3.50.
Lunch elementary was
$2.15.
215, sorry. And lunch, okay, it's about 215, yeah.
Adult
Lunch.
Adult lunch would be
For middle
$3.50.
school.
What is this, 40
$2.30.
cents, lunch
That's our
red?
free reduced.
Oh,
That's
free and
reduced,
reduced,
so that's
okay,
for,
so
that stays 40
Stays
cents.
where it
That's
is.
for-
Lunch adult is 350.
Breakfast.
High school breakfast is
We said 120. Oh,
You want to
you
go 130?
130.
130, 125, and then do $2
Buck
No.
25 where?
for
You're-
the
Breakfast
You're
middle
at
school?
$1.15, so you want to
No,
go up.
elementary.
In elementary, do it to 125.
Yeah, there's
Raise
another
that-
one in the
raise
middle here.
breakfast-
Breakfast middle school, is that,
That's 120. Make it. Oh, I'm sorry. You raised it a nickel.
130, right?
I thought you moved them a dime.
I thought that's
Move
what
the
we were
breakfast to a dime.
Yeah, high school and
Middle
middle school
school
are
move it down.
$1.20, so $1.30 now.
$1.30 and $1. Am I right?
$1 and $1.25.
$5 and an adult $2. How's that? That sound
Okay,
good?
that's,
That'll help, but we're gonna have the same conversation next year because every one of these districts is going through the same thing.
Correct, but
so
at
they're all
least,
gonna
but
go
at
up
least,
too,
at
so-
least if we have to do
We're starting
even
to
the
catch up.
same
We're
increment
starting to
next
catch up,
year,
right.
it's kind of a less of a culture shock, so to speak, next year. Because did we raise them this year?
we
did
didn't
this-
raise them last year.
We did.
We did.
I
was the year
think
before.
maybe 10
I
cents
think it
or
was
5
10.
cents.
Last year we did 10
10
cents across
cents.
the
10
board.
cents across the
everything.
board.
The year before that, we didn't though.
The year
There was
before
a
that, we
couple
did not-
years
we didn't
before I
raise it.
got here
Correct.
that I believe
Correct.
they weren't.
We did not raise
So,
it the year
okay.
before that.
I'm fine with that. Now that recommendation will come in April unless you want me to add it to the voting meeting.
Add it to the voting meeting.
So, and actually the bottom 6 schools probably don't need to raise their prices at all. Oh, actually they do because their elementaries are low. Probably everyone needs to raise their prices this year.
Okay,
All right.
thank
very
you
much.
guys.
Thank you.
We'll be back with the same thing next year.
Yeah,
Well,
but, okay.
We could put
This
that
is
on the
the-
tickler
this-
file for
this is the
the
bill.
finance
Oh,
committee.
thank you.
This is the bill.
No,
if
thank
wanna
you.
read it.
The bill.
The
Yeah.
I don't think I need to read it, but thank you for
the
bringing
act.
it. Okay. That's the Commerce Bank thing.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. If you're not, are you available on the
We'll watch
26th?
basketball now.
I believe so.
If not, not no
Sorry?
disrespect, but if you might want him here for the voting meeting. If we don't, we can't wait till April, correct? I mean,
Well, we should
The
have it
sooner
for
the better,
because we need to start the
because
budget.
we need
okay,
to
but
start
that's
our
fine.
renewal. and
Okay,
everything.
but I'm just
Well, if you wouldn't mind being here for the
well,
voting
that's what I'm
meeting,
asking him if he's
and
available.
we'll put it on the. Make sure you put a note to make that it's a
Can
little
I
bit farther
just,
up on the
we need
agenda.
to clearly make a clear statement because we're not allowed to raise more than the average and blame it on the new regs. Am I correct with that?
No, almost. We're not allowed the.
Oh, the
from
requirements.
USD, we're not allowed to say that we're forced to raise the prices and then raise it whatever we want. That's not. We're only required to raise it the 9 cents.
Mhm.
But due to the increase in costs, we need to raise it more.
And looking at our
and-
average in the county,
Right.
we
Correct.
decided we want to
so
go
we
And
can't-
more.
eventually, we're going to do this process every year, so.
To see what our average
As
is.
long as we don't say that which we're not doing it. We're not raising, we can't blame the increase on
The federal government.
on the USDA saying we have to raise prices.
I just want to be clear on that because they did
Well,
make
that's-
that very
well,
clear
that's
in
what I'm
We're raising
saying.
our.
it because of the increased costs.
So you'll be
But,
here.
yeah, I can be here.
Okay. Again, for his.
Are we at the middle school, according to the art show? For that, John, we're going to be at the middle school.
Middle school.
You can probably put that first, one of the quick ones, Andrew, first.
Yeah, I think it should go
You can
first.
just go
That
out
way
of
he
order.
can,
You can just,
Well, not
just
that,
put
it might be a little discussion because this is not on the
yeah, just
agenda.
we'll have to move it up.
That wasn't on the
Well, and I
agenda.
think it's important also what you figured out that, I mean, in the scope of everything, if you bought every single lunch, it's $36 more a year. It's not like we're,
Correct,
Per
It's not-
child,
it's,
right?
uh,
So if you have
right.
4 kids,
correct, well, yeah.
well, that's true, but
Yeah,
it
but
adds
that's
up.
every.
Yeah, but
Still
again,
cheaper than feeding them yourself,
still cheaper than going out to them. Absolutely.
probably.
Well, like
Go
I
to
said, the
McDonald's.
9 cents we have to
I don't
do.
Depends on what you give your kids for lunch, I guess.
Right, that's true.
Go out to McDonald's.
I mean, I'm not a big McDonald's person.
Even if you
so-
don't, I'm talking even a pizza now is $12.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
I just had
some parents
McDonald's
might
today.
say for
It was,
$36, it sounds like a little, but if you have 4
$5.50.
kids, then it adds up, bucks.
It's another $10 a month. If you had 4 kids in a year,
If you ate every day.
if you ate every day. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Okay.
Andrew,
Yes.
question.
Yes.
The district doesn't really run the lunch, you have it outsourced, right? You
That-
just
Correct.
firm do it.
Sodexo.
Is
Well-
there an amount of taxpayer money that goes into the food service?
No. Nope.
No.
No.
It's a proprietary fund, so it's self-sufficient.
So what if this year, they would run short? The amount wasn't cover their expenses, they have to absorb the loss?
Correct.
yes.
Yes.
They
And
have a
actually,
fund balance. They have,
But I mean, they would have to absorb the loss if there was?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, just to clarify,
Our fund.
none of this,
So,
none of the
service fund.
0% of the reimbursement and 0% of the actual cash paid for lunch goes to Sodexo. That's all the district. Sodexo gets paid per meal served, so regardless of
What we
whatever
What we make.
whatever extra revenue this brings does nothing at all to Sodexo. I mean, we get none of it.
Okay, so let's say you have extra revenue because you're raising the prices next year. Where does the revenue go?
In the food service fund. Does
Cafeteria
not
fund.
hit the general fund. It's a separate fund.
That's for possible purchase of equipment,
Okay, so your
utensils,
expense-
trays. We purchased trays at the high
We
school
purchased
recently.
equipment out of
We
there,
purchased all
yes.
new trays at the high school.
So-
That's where that funds come
So
from.
there is an expense for the food service, but not the actual food, but
Sure.
to provide the facility.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, that's,
Like I said, we purchased all new trays for the high school. I don't, you know.
so if there was extra revenue from this, it would not be going to the company. It would be going back into future costs.
Yeah, correct.
I think the public hears that, they can
Correct.
deal with the increase.
And do
Yeah, we
again.
can't, Sodexo can't make any more money than
Okay.
is in the contract.
And John, right?
It's not a profit center for the school
Yeah,
We
district.
use, we
That's
use that,
our
we use
equipment.
that fund
What
to use our ovens
what
and
it-
refrigerators.
What it does is, the way it helps the general fund, if we need to purchase equipment, we don't need to use the general fund because we have a
That money
fund
set
balance in
aside.
the cafeteria.
Refrigerator blows out, we have that
We
money
have
set
that,
aside.
and we don't need, doesn't have to come from the general
Correct.
fund.
And some repairs that are being done aren't coming out of the general fund.
Correct.
The food service
Correct.
fund is paying for those
Correct.
repairs.
Oven, refrigerator.
It's a good question, Tom. Thank you for asking it.
Does the district, though, the employees that work for the cafeteria are employees of the district?
Correct.
That
That
is
is
correct.
correct.
He's the only one that's not.
But their salaries come out of the food service fund, so they're not a general fund expense.
Correct,
So
correct.
the revenue that we're making
It's
from the lunches
self-sustained.
is helping
Correct.
pay their
His is
I
only
salaries.
remember
salary
seeing
is
$50,000 somewhere under cafeterias. Was that?
$50,000 is the charge that the district charges them for the year for being in the building, like for using the copier. And,
Overhead.
Okay.
yeah.
Trash.
Utilities and.
So we're actually charging that fund for those services.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on. Actually, before we go into this carryover, I actually wanted to address something which was the swap. Did you have something else?
Well, no, we have new then. Don't forget the new.
Yeah,
before the
I'm sorry.
carryover.
Well, let's go to the new.
That's
Let's go to the
okay.
new. No.
I mean, that
Let's
might
go
just
through
be
it.
really quick.
No. Go through it. Let's go through it. You wanted to propose this new
Treasurer's report.
treasurer's report.
And
Which really is not new.
It's the old treasurer's
It
report.
is. Now, this kind of sort of got changed before I got here, because I guess you guys used to get like a treasurer's report like this.
God, you don't want to know.
Well, this is the one I'm proposing now. But I think I emailed it to everyone. If you look at the old new one, I think it provides you a lot more detail of what comes in a month by category, and I think it will be a lot more transparent
Correct.
to the board than it has been.
We're not going to have that. It's not going to go to that huge stack, but Danielle and I both
Well, we
discussed.
put the reports and stuff in that we feel are helpful, along with the sheets up front of the way Julie used to do it. Because I went to her and I said, "You're probably not going to be happy with me, but I have this in mind." And she goes, "Well, here, this is what we used to do." And I said, "Well, that's exactly what I'm looking for."
Correct.
Because what you're getting now
I know.
It's not
are
helpful.
just cash balances, and
Well-
it doesn't.
No, that-
it
no,
doesn't
that-
provide you.
No, but
With
we would like to
anything.
see.
I, we do want to see that. And the other thing is, I think, in terms of, you see how you have these two? What's easier is to understand for most lay people is the way you have it broken out here, right? This isn't easy when you're looking at all the different.
Well,
some of the-
you're going to have it because this one's the general fund, so it's
Right.
this entire one all broken out.
Oh, broken out. But
Right.
it's nice to have a summary. It's nice to have, if you just push this into an Excel, it's nice to have a summary.
The
saying-
summary's actually at the end of the report.
No, I get it, but you're giving me the total dollar figure. What I'm saying is,
No, this is just for the general fund. This isn't going to compare because this is different. Like
Right.
the summary, that summary that you're looking for is at the end of each.
There is a summary
Like
at the end of each fund.
no, I see it. So what I'm looking for is one sheet that has all the funds on it, like this one does.
So you still want that sheet.
Just this sheet. I think this sheet is helpful in
Yeah.
the sense that I can look at this real quick and say, okay, I got $7 million in general fund, $485,000 in the capital reserves, cafe's got 200, nothing in the construction funds, and down here, Wachovia Fund 27, if that was relabeled swap fund or something like that, it's a little easier for everybody else to understand what it is. Oh, boom, okay, it's 1.2 million, and I can look at that in 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes, 10 seconds, just breeze through it and say, okay, now I know what our balances are. And I can compare that to last month's and see how they've changed from one month to
I have a
another.
question.
Very, very easily.
I have a question.
This is helpful if I want to take a deep dive and see what all the little
Is there any way you can do an Excel spreadsheet per month, and you can do beginning balance, deposits, withdrawals, whatever, ending balance. The next line down, that ending balance should be the beginning balance of the next month, and then have the general fund one account, cafeteria fund. I don't care what institution they're in. I don't care if the general fund has $30 million in it. Your first column says $30 million. You deposited $1 million, you withdrew $2 million, you have 20, whatever,
But
29
I
million.
don't.
And then,
And technically, that
but wait, let me finish. So that on one Excel spreadsheet, it says July 1. Next one says August 1. So the ending of July 30th should be the beginning of August 1st. And then again, it shows. That way we can see what hits. And on one spreadsheet, there should only be 12 line items for every year.
But it's really not telling you anything.
Yeah, it is. It's telling me what depositing
It's not
when.
telling you
everything.
when questions come out and you want to know the details
No,
of
but what
stuff.
it's telling me is if I'm trending that I'm collecting $30 million in August, and then it goes down, and I can get a better. No, wait, let me finish. Then all of a sudden, if for some reason I get a huge deposit in a couple of years, in a month of February that I know I'm going to get, I can question why.
It's an outlier. It's easy to identify.
It's
the
easier
outliers.
to outline. I can look at a spreadsheet, and I can look at one spreadsheet, and I can look at every month, and all the deposits, all 12 are in one column, all the withdrawals, and anything else in there, and I can basically see. And after a year or two of doing this, I'll be able to tell that, okay, every August I get $30 million, whatever it happens to be. The next August I only get $24 million. Guess what, Danielle? Why did it go down $6 million in 1 year?
You are getting it in this format every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what.
So,
but
well
that's what
then,
reports.
I mean, are there reports that we don't have to do? Because there's a lot of...
And I don't really care where.
I mean, no offense, but every time we have to this is a hand-generated report. It's not out of the system. Every time we do
Correct.
stuff that's not system-generated, there is
Yeah, but you
error.
can pull this off your bank statements. Here are your deposits, here are your withdrawals. Every bank statement has the
Yeah,
top
but
of it.
that's not.
So what does the
That's
system?
not necessarily what our
Okay,
books
well,
are
hold on
with
a second.
outstanding with deposits in transit or expenses that haven't hit yet. I
What-
mean, you have check runs of checks that haven't cashed yet in the bank. You have it on your books, but they may not have gone through the bank yet.
What kind of reports can the system generate that would mimic sort of what he's describing?
There aren't any.
No, because
I mean, they're in the format that I have in the reports that I handed out that I
See,
have.
Because sometimes I think the issue is, I don't know what it is between I'll call it the real world and the educational world, but the financial statements that I look at every day look nothing like what you guys
they're
produce.
not going to.
Well, I know that's the problem, is that none of us are from
Correct.
the education world.
They're not
We're all
Correct.
from the private
But see,
sector. So the problem we have is it's taken me years to understand what you guys are generating and to be able to look at it now and understand, okay, I know what that means now. But it took me years to figure it out.
Honestly, I know somebody who came to me and said, "Oh my God, I'm like taking this." She was going for finance, and she took a little area of school finance and said, "I'm lost."
But how hard is it to take? I'll use an example, our cafeteria fund, because I'm assuming it's all in one banking institution. Maybe not. Okay, whatever.
not.
But if it is, $200,000 as of July 1st. The next column is deposits. Next column is withdrawals. You have 250 in the end of July 31st. It's a reconciled. No, wait, let me finish.
All it is, though, is
But then the
just
next-
taking
but no,
this
wait.
detail and putting, because she has
Yeah.
your revenues and your expenses.
Okay,
so
but
it's
someone
just
can
putting
plug
it
that
in a
into an
line.
Excel spreadsheet and keep it running down. Then
Instead of this, it would be that you're
yeah,
talking
I mean,
about.
again, I don't care if the $200,000 is in 4, 6, or 8 institutions. I mean,
That's
after a while,
easy
it's
to do.
ridiculous. I
I
don't
think
really
that's
need them all.
easy to do.
I just need to know it went from $200,000, now it's $250. Then went from $250 and we dropped to $150 because you spent more. And if there's something outlined, and not only that, if we as a board say, okay, you can spend $100,000 in the cafeteria fund in September, and the equipment's installed in October, I should see a hit of $100,000 out of that account in October or November. But the way that's going, and on one spreadsheet, I'll be able to see that. On this one, I can't. I'd be like searching all over the place. Where did the $100,000? I don't care what institution it comes out of. I just want to know that my fund balance went down.
I think that is an easy request to do.
You understand what I'm
But then
saying?
I would like to get. Well, then do you still?
But again,
do you
we're
want
not-
the new detail?
No, I don't need
See,
a
this
detail.
thing here, I don't think is the issue with this one was, and I'm just thinking of it as Mike Wolf gets on the board and he starts looking at this stuff. He's going, holy crap, we've got 15 funds here
Correct.
that I'm going to track from one month to the next. When really, the only thing he needs to be looking at is this number.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? From
But
one month to
But
the
I
next.
think what Danielle was trying to get at is you can.
Let's put it this way: if I was a treasurer, I wouldn't be looking. I wouldn't. I wonder. I don't know.
This is, I mean, remember, everybody's trying to simplify this because we
Well,
can't
I-
understand the
I
data
am
that's being
too,
presented
but
to
the
us.
question, you're not going to necessarily see the big swings in the month.
Sure you will. No, sure you will.
Over time.
Not
Over time you
necessarily.
will.
Yeah.
Because there might be one month that we got something in that month and it doesn't come to
Okay,
the next
but you know
month.
what? But that's
you're-
fine. But then if it's on one spreadsheet, guess what? I'm more likely to ask you, okay, why in the cafeteria fund was there a blip of $200,000? What? Okay, in February,
But what will happen is
until
as you start-
January of that year, you increased sorry, Andrew, you increased our cafeteria fund by $200,000 deposit when most of the time it was only $50,000. So if I look at that and you went from $50,000 average to $200,000, guess what? The first thing I'm going to do, Danielle or Julie, why did it go up $150,000?
Well, one of the other things that I was trying to do, and the reason why I asked you guys for those, where is it in here?
Yeah.
I just,
You know, I'm talking about the general fund thing that you guys crank out in Excel for us every
Danielle
month.
does
These.
that one.
I like these. You know why? Because this allows me to do what Kevin's doing. I graph it. And so what'll happen is, and this is one of the issues we always struggle with is, okay, what we know what our total budget is in a year, but we don't know when
we get it.
things hit. So we never know how to measure whether we're on target or off target in terms of our budget, in terms of year to date. But what I've done is I started mapping that out, and I realized that our budget sort of does like this, for whatever the reason. Okay, that's the graph, right?
Okay.
So now every year I can expect to see my expenses mimic that from one year to the next. Now they may be higher, you know, from one, but so if something hits here one year and then the next year it hits here, but then it's going to correct, that graph should always stay the same. It's when you get an outlier in the data that all of a sudden it's going to raise some
You're long
questions.
enough to tell me you should know what month we get most of our cash in our general fund. Now, of course, we know it's August, but what I'm trying to say is, or it should be August, but what I'm trying to say is you in your mind, if I tell you what's the average, usually the average deposits in January for any fiscal year if we get into our general fund, you probably have a rough idea. You've probably done enough bank recs for the month of January to tell me roughly what the cash should be.
Well, see, I don't. Well,
Well,
I don't
you
do the
used it,
bank
whatever.
recs.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're
for
trying to say.
I know in the medical field that June stinks for us to get reimbursement. So June's always I can look at that and I know it's going to be a lousy month for medical, for us to collect. You guys know that August is probably the highest one for some of the revenue. All I'm saying is I want to be able to take maybe I'm oversimplifying.
No,
I think I'm
understand what
actually
you're
making it simpler.
Yeah,
And it's
no,
just
you
somebody
don't
plugging
want
this.
this new one, basically.
I'm not the
That's the
treasurer. You have to ask Mr. Simonera that question. I'm saying to you, I would more likely look at that and say, and I can look at that every month. And you know what? Here's the way, if you can, and again, I don't know, I'm not asking you to go back and recreate the wheel, but if you do it for 10, 11, 11, 12, then I'll be able to take them. You could put 1 year, the next year, and the next year. You could keep going down the same spreadsheet. And if it's on Excel, then Andrew, anybody of us, could graph it if we want, but we don't need to graph it.
Well, the
I don't
beauty
need
of
to
the
graph
graphing it is
I don't need to
you
graph
can
it, but I
see-
mean, you could put 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13.
Don't
and
you
then
think
I can go
that
back
makes
and-
it pretty easy?
Yeah, I agree with that, but again, for them to supply it, just supply me the numbers. Again,
But I am, just not in the format that you want.
but you're
No,
giving
on
me more
this,
detail.
on the sheet that Andrew
Yeah, I'm asking
said.
you to make it more simplified.
So I need to know, though, and you're saying that you're not going to make the decision.
I
because it's
can't
the
answer that. I'm not the
treasurer.
treasurer.
I know, but what am I supposed to do?
I would recommend to him you would. I only need 4 numbers. Tell me the beginning
Can I
balance,
ask a
deposits,
question?
and adjustments and withdrawals.
It's a little
5.
bit. It's a little bit different question. It's I think the same one I've been asking even before Danielle got here about the system. Is there some way that we can customize with the system
No.
to create this kind of
we
report?
know
no,
that.
we've been back and forth on this.
But
for
with
a
Excel,
long
you
time.
could easily you could do this.
The difference is
That
once
is easy to do. I agree with you. That it's exactly what I do here, just in a different.
Here's the reason why I
manner.
say you have to ask Mr. Simonera. It's he's the treasurer of the school district. Ultimately, it has to be, quote, his report if you call it the treasurer's report. I think you can simplify this a lot easier. I remember when, like you said, we used to get double them every twice a month because we got the one for the voting meeting and the McCain meeting. Number of trees we killed 10 years ago was horrible.
Well, I would suggest, though, and I think you're getting to that point, that we should find a way to do this report regardless of who's treasurer.
Well, no, absolutely, and that's
I
actually
know, but
something
I'm
that I've
saying
been
right
working
now.
on with the model that I'm trying to develop here. That Danielle's giving me the information for not only the budget, but what I want to do is take the budgets, almost like a year to date. You can basically pull down year to date what you've spent on a monthly basis, right?
That's what you get. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can pull down year to date on a monthly basis, and I can start to create a 12-month expenditure graph. You follow me? And that's what this is right here,
And I
okay,
guess-
for a number of years. And so now I can sit there and I can start to plot next year's budget against this, not only in aggregate, but also by line item. And so now you can start, once you get that into an Excel model, I can start tracking the data that you spit out from your system on that model and say, gee, we're riding a little high in, pick the number, section 1,100, because it's tracking higher than what we budgeted. Why is that? Are we going to end up over budget in this line item or under budget for the year? Now, it doesn't take into consideration the transfers, the monthly transfers that happen from bucket to bucket, but you don't have to go down to that level of detail. As long as you stay in the same category, we can track it. And you guys typically do the transfers within the major categories, right? You're not moving them.
Not necessarily.
So those would be some of the things we'd have to account for. But that would certainly make it easier. I'll show you. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I understand what you're.
Okay,
I understand.
and that's like 4 years right there.
Correct. And that's
so
I mean, that's
you're seeing a same pattern over and over and over again as to where our expenditures are landing.
I don't want to have to dig for what happened in my general fund, what happened in my cafeteria fund, what happened.
This is going to take some time. I don't think you guys can turn around and throw out a report and get what we want. I think this is something we're going to have to work on.
No, I think we can very easily do
Okay.
what Kevin has asked. Or has suggested, I should say.
Yeah, I just want to look at
I'm
that.
trying to get from the committee, I need to know where you want us to go with these board reports.
Well,
because this isn't working even for me when I look at it. Because when I'm getting the questions from the board is what came in, where are things, that's why I thought this would be helpful, because then you can see when you get a big deposit in for Berks EIT or for transportation.
That's why, but the only way I can see that is, again, you're
looking at you want to look at the total numbers,
but you're
not
not
the
necessarily
details.
going to see that.
It gets lost. That's the problem. Like with the PlanCon J money that came in, that got lost because it was in a bigger piece of money. Like when you asked to look at the reports, you wouldn't have seen that $900,000 or $800,000 because it was part of a $2 million number. You follow me?
Yeah, I got that.
Which is why I just suggested this, so that the transparency is there. It's not that we're trying to.
We're not accusing you of anything, but I don't know. I still think that would pop out, even if it's in a $2 million deposit.
No, because it came in $400,000.
It doesn't matter. If you're tracking
it's not.
Not if you're doing total revenue and total expenses for the month. It's not going to pop out.
It was. I looked, Kevin. That one was It was.
It's a minor.
It was
variance.
like a 1% variance for the entire month. There's no way you would have picked that up unless you had the line items that she's talking about there, where it would have popped out at you. Holy cow! That account just jumped by whatever the number was, 27%.
That's where I was coming from in the suggestion of the new old way.
Well, see what again. You could always put a footnote and say, okay, this is an abnormal deposit, and then mark that in a footnote.
But we're going to have those throughout.
Not all of it. No, okay, that PlanCon J was an absolute footnote. Most other stuff's not a footnote. I mean, come on. You have to use some professional judgment. That's an asterisk in that number, and whatever the deposit was, an asterisk at the bottom. By the way, X amount of money was from this. Abnormal. Those are the, I'm not looking for the abnormal stuff. That's what I'm asking for. And, if you go from a $2 million deposit to 2.1, it's only because of timing. It could be deposits, it could be the holiday, it could be the number of working days in a month. October one year versus October next year. I'm not looking for those different. I'm looking for something that would jump out as an account. I would ask those unusual things would jump out. 1 month, this month, everybody knows February you got more deposit. Why? You got an extra whole business day because of the 29th of the month. That to me is a normal course. I wouldn't even worry about it. So if I got an extra $50,000 in the month of February 2012, I would expect that. But if I get, if I'm tracking and I'm down to, and normally I don't, and I get an extra $50,000 from the last 2 years, I'd be like, okay, there's a reason. Is there a footnote? And if that is something, then you footnote it and you say, exceptionally large. Okay, same way we tell you to buy cafeteria equipment, and the cafeteria fund goes down $100,000, and normally we only spend 20. Hello, that's a footnote. Even if it's 20, and it's in the scheme of things. If it's a $20,000 versus a $10,000, you're right. That's not a major thing, but it is. It's a purchase, so you put that in a footnote. Cafeteria trays. Again, I'm just looking at it the way I would do it, because after a while, you lose me into that stuff. For 10 years, I've been like, oof, that's just like. And I think I was.
I'm here to ask the committee. Tell me what you want to see, so we can do it that way. I've tried to propose something. It's obviously not quite what everyone's looking for. I need to know what the committee wants for the board.
I think
what do other school districts do?
This is how I did it in Rose Tree.
I mean, have you guys polled some of the other school districts to see what they do for their boards?
I actually did. I actually emailed a couple of my colleagues, and they do it very, very similar to this detail.
Wow.
Very similar to the ones that I
Because
pulled
the other
off.
part of it is, not only is it can be difficult for board members to kind of switch from, at least it is for me, to switch from the finance that I do to now
Correct.
adjust to what you guys are producing. But it's as clear as mud to the public. I mean, that's the other part of it too. So,
And here's the other thing is, I'm sorry, Andrew, I don't want to reinvent your wheel.
well, that's
To get
true,
your
too.
report, you spend just as much time as they do.
I do spend a lot of
I'm
time,
not have to be
but
rude. And
I'm trying to
kudos
automate that,
Kudos to you, but I'm sorry. I'm not. I want to see something plain, simple, one page, simple. Like I said, I work. Again, for example, I work for doctors. Give them the bottom line. That's what they want to see. They don't. Tell me what my income made.
And I'm assuming that's why this was attempted, but
I actually kind of like that
I
one.
would
I
say,
mean,
yeah.
to be honest with you, because I think it's very easy
That's
to
fine.
understand. You look at it and you say, what's my general fund
Yeah.
balance? It's
that
$7
makes
million.
our life a lot easier. But I was
I would
concerned
go-
with the transparency
Would-
issue and the questions of
What I can do,
Okay, but I
do is sit down, Danielle and I, and discuss when I do this.
Yeah, if there's an
Let me ask you a
abnormal
question.
If there's
This
something,
this report here is
But I don't
this is
necessarily
generated.
know that because you book all the PDE stuff. I don't necessarily
Wait a minute,
see that on a
though.
daily
You guys,
basis.
this is just being generated by the system, right?
No.
No, that's
I
Julie
was
does
doing that.
You
I
spend all your time separating all these things into different
Yes,
accounts.
I did.
Well, these are
She said she does everything by hand.
See, that's what I'm saying. I don't want that. That one in your left hand,
Yeah.
I think that's fine. And I
Okay.
think if we would trust, it's a trust factor to you two. If there's an abnormal, whatever, withdrawal or deposit, you footnote it. You footnote something that
You just put an asterisk next to it and
you
say
footnote and say the reason why.
$400,000
Yeah.
cash flow came in this month.
$200,000
It's not going to be
expense
here
because-
next year. It's not going to be here the following month or whatever it is. If it's
$200,000
a one-time
expense.
event.
2 windows or whatever shattered at one of the high school. We had to replace the window. I don't know, something stupid. You know what I mean? You footnote it. You tell us the big stuff that you would want to know if you were sitting in my seat. If there's a jump in something that you would want if you were sitting in my seat, that's what you footnote to it. That's fine if you want to leave that. That's at least it gives a little more detail.
That's fine.
Again, I'm sorry. I'm not speaking on behalf of the other two. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. So please try to.
And I know
But
that
I don't
was
want.
why
Oh my
we
God!
went
Yeah, jeez.
the way we did.
Well, that's because we're getting 150 pages every 2
Oh my
weeks.
God!
Right.
It's just
You
ridiculous.
couldn't-
And
I just didn't feel that you were getting what you keep asking for, which is the detail, which is why I finally
I don't
said-
want the detail.
Well, I'm
I
not
think-
saying you, but
Yeah,
I mean,
no. I
in
think-
general, you.
I want to know about the
That's why I
exceptions.
finally sat down and did go out on websites and went to Julie with the stuff, and she goes, "Well, here, look, this is what we used to do."
I want you
Yeah.
to tell me the
So-
exceptions.
I think we moved away from that because it was overwhelming.
That's fine.
Okay.
Then we'll stay with where we are and do footnotes.
And for some reason, the governor decides to give us, $500,000 one month because they like the color of our, blue and white logo. Then I think you should put that on in our.
I'll make sure I do.
I'm serious. That's the stuff I want to know about. Seriously. I mean, Andrew, I know is I'm not a detail oriented person as much as
no,
Andrew
but
is.
at the end of the day,
But-
look, I sit in lots of different boards, and you sit down and you don't have a lot of time, right? You're there for a
Correct.
few minutes to review things.
Correct.
You go through the budget. I like variance reports. I like to see how is the numbers in this particular month or this particular
Correct.
year different than the year before,
Correct.
and explain to me the variance, right? So. If we're on track, then there shouldn't be much of a variance,
Correct.
3 to 5%. But if something jumps 20%, I need somebody to sit down and explain to me why it jumped 20% or dropped 20%.
Correct.
And if there's an explanation for it, great. If there isn't an explanation, that's when a lot of questions start
Well,
happening and the detail
other
and all that
thing
kind of stuff
I
has to come
ask
out.
is we normally have the board reports out to you prior to
The voting.
Voting
meeting.
the voting meeting.
Correct.
If there, again, I ask that,
Correct.
please call me.
Correct.
If something really does not look right
Correct.
to you, or you
Correct.
need an explanation, we can always add that
Sure we
footnote.
do. Yeah, look.
Here's what the
We
exceptions.
know you guys have the details.
Correct. We know you have the details.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd say. The exceptions are what you anticipate someone might ask you.
And that's
That's what you have
fine.
to think about. If
That's
you think
fine.
it might be asked,
You're
that's
just lucky that we're not. You don't have 9 forensic accountants on the board. Okay?
No, but seriously,
But
here's
see-
the thing you have to think about. If you think it's going to be asked, that's something you footnote. If it's not going to be asked, then it's not footnote, right? Because when I present to the owners of my company and I look at the financial statements, I go through it and I look and I know certain doctors look at certain things, and I'm prepared to answer based on that. And if my payroll goes up, $500,000 in 1 month, I'm prepared to ask that question. That's what I'm asking you. Like Andrew said, we don't talk this all the time. Give me a snapshot. Anticipate the question that's going
And
to be
again,
asked.
if you see something that,
Then we'll let you know, but in the
maybe I
meantime-
think is
Well,
and that's the thing. The
that's our
judgment,
duty.
Yeah.
the judgment of our judgment might not be the same as yours. Like what we
And
might.
that's
come on, yeah.
Some of it, though, I mean, is just
Well,
the normal course of business.
Someone's going to slip through, but come on, you've been around the board to know that.
Yeah. But I'm
saying.
just asking that when you get the reports, if something does not,
Correct.
something stands out and I don't have a footnote, call
Yeah, I
me.
agree with you. Yeah,
Call me, and
yeah.
I will let you know what it
Sure.
is, and we can add it for the board meeting.
That's fine. I'm sorry to bring it up, but
No,
I
no,
thought
look,
that
it's-
I thought
listen.
that
It's a healthy
going
discussion to
out and
have.
looking at what other schools do might help us.
No, no,
if
it
we're
is.
happy with where we are, that's fine.
Right.
No. I think it's a healthy discussion. I think the issue is one of, at the end of the day, boards, they want to make the only thing we want to know is, are we on target with our budgets and our revenues, or are we not? And what are the extraordinary items that are
Bingo.
dropping
Thank
in
you.
and out that we need to be aware of so we can plan for them or plan around them or make adjustments as a result of them?
Exactly. That's
And that's
exactly-
really about it. $50 million budget there's a lot of tiny little things you can get caught up in, and that's not where we're at. That you guys, that's what you get paid to mind the store.
Correct.
We're here to say, hey, wait a minute, something changed here, and now
100%
why?
agree. 100%
Okay,
agree.
so.
And we'll do
And we
it
ought to be able to
that
do
way.
that in
And-
like 10 minutes, be able to
100%
scan some
I agree,
financial statements
100%
and be able to move on.
Absolutely.
And we'll do it that way. But if at some point in the future it's not working for you,
Correct.
Well,
Correct. And the other thing is,
Back,
and the other thing
we'll-
is,
Has anybody
Will
been
do.
shy so far about
No.
and the other thing
opining?
is, be aware, things will get, and there might be a question, even if they don't ask you, that will come up at a meeting, and we'll say, go back and ask us, we'll ask you for further detail. It's good, some stuff, one or two things might get missed,
But I mean, in
but
all
again, I
fairness-
agree with Andrew 100%.
in all fairness to
Boom,
Danielle,
done.
as far as the cash piece, the treasurer's piece, I'm the one entering and doing that. So it's better if you see something
That's fine.
to do it prior to the meeting.
I mean, I can't
Contact
know
me.
everything. Like
Right.
I know
Right.
the
Well, I agree
global
with that.
piece of it, but I don't
But see,
monitor
and
what
again,
she
that's
does
where,
like every day.
if there is an
or
exception, not only do you have to tell us,
I'm going to have to talk to her.
Bingo,
Right.
that's exactly right.
Exactly.
And I will do that.
No,
as I'm doing it.
I
Okay,
figured you would,
Danielle,
but-
this is, do you think that these items should be added
And
as
we can
footnotes?
always take the month before and look at it and say,
Correct.
Yeah,
or take the.
That's
year
my
or
suggestion,
something.
but
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
fine. I mean, that's
Like I
fine.
said, I'm sorry.
No.
No.
Look, it's a healthy. I will say I was a little confused because I'm looking at the new form. It said like 2009. And I was like,
I know.
why am I looking at a new form from 2009?
Because I wasn't about
Don't
to
pull up-
regenerate it.
No,
I just made
it's
a
fine.
copy.
It's fine. It just
those things were horrible.
they were bad.
Well, I'm not saying to bring. I wasn't suggesting
Those
the whole
things were-
thing. That's
oh
why I made
my.
my own
Yeah.
new old one.
You can't imagine how much time that took.
You can't
I-
I
imagine.
can because I used to
You
do
can't
Yeah.
imagine
it that
trees
way.
we killed.
I can't imagine how much time that took.
Uh-huh.
Way too much time.
They're still in my attic.
All right.
Okay.
I have every
Now you
one.
can kind of go
What was
however you. Well,
Box.
this is all the carryover, but you want to know.
Okay, so actually, the next thing I wanted to do is sort of move to the swap thing, so we can get that off the table and make a recommendation to the board and go from there. Now, I guess where I was going with this was when I looked at the information you gave us on the swap valuations. It doesn't look like, obviously we get to, the 1.2 very often. So I think what I was thinking in my head was, is it possible to write the resolution in a way that the board would get a heads up if we got down to 1.5 million and then pull the trigger at 1.3, since that's what we seem to have in our interest rate protection fund. We've got like 1.2 something or other, and then there's going to be some extra transactional costs.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this thing's costing us $30,000 to $40,000 to $60,000 a year, anyways, in extra interest. So, in my opinion, if you got 1.25 million there and it costs you $50,000 to pull the trigger and get out, you just save $50,000 in interest. It's a no-brainer. So I would think if you give them the authorization to say, yeah, get us out of the swap at 1.3 million. But give us a heads up if you get close. Maybe, for 1.5, we want to know that it's getting close. And
Right.
if we think interest rates are still going that way, then maybe we wait. But if we think they're going to go the other way, at least as a board, we can have a conversation about whether we want to spend more money to get out of it. We may not have the money to spend to get out of it at that point in time.
That's fine, but just understand if it does get the 1.5, and I would email it to the board just to let you
You
know
need
our
to
swaps.
know.
we need to act. Like,
Absolutely.
it's not that we could wait till the next board meeting
Well, see,
or
that's
No,
where-
no, you need to
but
know
that's
within a
where-
couple of
to
days.
act. Like, absolutely.
But that's where I think, can you put in the resolution, and I apologize, maybe, can you put in a resolution that as long as the finance committee, the majority of the finance committee say pull the trigger, pull it?
On the 1.5, between 1.5
Whatever, yeah.
and 1.3.
In other words, she calls us up and says, I need 48-hour notice, then, why can't we do a conference call between the four?
You think it should just be the finance people making that decision? Or you think
I
at least
don't know.
5 members of the board?
That's an executive session issue. Be careful with that one.
I think you got to have at least 5 members of the board.
To what, to pull the
Well,
trigger?
if you're debating out of the view of a public
Yeah, see,
meeting, to
that's what I
do
mean. I
something
don't
like
wanna
that, that's
debate
a
it.
problem.
That's, you want to add the authorization for her to pull the trigger, especially now if you write it that you have a little bit of flexibility in it, then how are you going to do that? Unless you get 5 people in an emergency meeting and you can't,
because that's the idea of this resolution. is
To
you're-
avoid that very
you're
scenario.
Picking, you're picking a
Right.
number and letting
Correct.
me pull the
But if
trigger.
you do it, if you need a 5, then you need a public meeting.
Well, would we agree it's 1.3? It would be the one you let her pull you let the business management office pull the trigger.
Doesn't
as a
change by
recommendation.
how much
I mean, you can
money-
write my name into it, so there's a double checks
Well,
and
I have a question, but
balances.
doesn't that number change depending on what we have in the account?
Right now, we've got, what, 1.25?
Well, I can tell you that number is going to go down by $6,227
Okay,
because
that's-
the payment that we made
Correct.
It's gonna
is
keep
coming
going
out.
down.
No, it's not. We're not allowed to take any more out of that to pay these payments.
So now that comes out of our,
That's going to come out of operating. Because
why
if
aren't we
you-
allowed to take any more out of that?
Well, because if you go back to what I sent out back in like December,
Yeah,
according to, let me just get there.
I mean, isn't that what the money's for?
No. Well, yes and no. Yes, if you do another authorization.
Okay, in order to pull the trigger, how much time do you need? Is it a day, 2 days, 4?
Depends on the rate, how quickly the rates change. Rates don't usually move
He's
that
usually
fast.
emailing.
But these things change every 2 weeks.
So
So if you look at the valuation chart, this thing jumped from 1.4 million at the end of May to 1.1 million by June. So within 30 days, it dropped $300,000.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
so
looking at the
my-
valuation.
So my question is there,
I mean, it's usually moving about $100,000 every 2 weeks.
yeah, but see, my question is if that number that we have changes too every couple of weeks.
Actually, one time.
What number that we have?
No. The number we have is the extra interest payments that we make, and we make
Okay.
them twice
Twice
a
a
year,
year, April and
and
October.
October.
Now, here,
So
back
it's
to your
pretty
question.
static.
We are allowed to use any interest earnings to pay those additional interest payments. So any interest
Only
earnings
the interest
that
we
look
earn on the 1.2.
1.2.
right. However, the board can authorize the administration to write a request to the paying agent asking them to transfer those payments, those additional payments, out of this fund.
That's what we agreed to do.
Well, you agreed
I thought we
to
made
take
that
that
decision.
out of there, but it wasn't an actual resolution. Like I said, I'm taking this out of there, and then when I checked with the auditor, she said, well, you really need an authorization unless you're using the interest earnings that you had. And we used our interest earnings.
I hear what you're saying, and I remember that conversation, but wasn't that when we had the conversation with the auditor last fall as a board? Because I remember Walt sitting over there, and we were all sort of talking about, we were like, aren't we in agreement that these extra interest payments should be coming from the 1.2 million as opposed to out of our operating fund? And there was a general consensus that yes, that's what we should be doing. Yeah, and so that would be your authorization then going forward. I mean, unless the board then came back to you and said, no, don't do that anymore.
Correct.
I would say that would be what you
It
need
would
to be
make
doing
sense
going
to do
forward.
that.
Well, we have been since I've been
Yeah,
here.
it makes
Yeah.
sense.
But this one coming up in April, I need that authorization in order to do
I
that.
think you got
so if
that
I
last
have it,
October.
then that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, we were doing it. It's just
I would say you continue to do that.
So the resolution to get out of it, how do we write that?
so. Then you're correct. If that is the case, then that is going to keep going down by whatever those payments are. So if you're
So
saying
1.3,
1.3 instead of maybe it being 50,000 when the trigger's pulled, it might be 60 or 100 depending upon what balance is in there.
If you look at the valuations over the last, going back to 2007, it doesn't get below it gets below 1.2 million one time. That was this past June. The rest of the time, it dips. We'll be lucky to see this, but I'm just saying that I think at 1.3 million, if you're talking about $100,000, I don't think that's a lot to get out of this thing when it's costing us, $30,000, $40,000 a year.
The only problem is, it depends on where, so the 100,000 will come out of general fund to make up the difference, correct?
You would have to.
It would
Where
have
else does
to.
it come
So
from?
that's
It
the
would
problem.
have
That's the issue that you come up with, because one year, depending on what particular year, you just drop $100,000. And I'm not arguing with you that we're paying 30, but that's a lot of money to
Well,
get out of the
it's a
general
big
fund at
hit
one
for
shot.
one.
Understand also, though, that with this,
Again,
in the past, we have spent more than 30 in a given
I
year.
understand that. I'm just saying to you.
We've spent, darn it, where is it? Some of their payments in a given year were,
Where was-
$120,000
was
in
that-
extra interest
Where
payments.
does that have to come out of the general fund?
Come up from,
Can it come out of any other fund?
What other funds do we have?
No.
You got your capital reserves,
Yeah, well.
No,
and- which
it's
is
not really
400, and then you got this
It's not-
interest
it's
rate.
not-
I'm just asking.
It's not debt
It's not
service.
debt
no.
service. No,
It's a
it would
swap.
have
It's
to
not-
be,
it
it
has
would
to be
have to be
general.
general fund.
Okay, then how about this?
Because if you were to make money on it, you'd put it in your general fund.
Okay, now this is getting really far-fetched. But, sorry, thank God there's not a lot of people here. But can we set $100,000 aside in an account for that reason?
It would
You
still
just-
have to
you're
be
just
part of the
designating-
general. It would be a designated.
No,
fund.
it's
Be
just general
designated
funds.
No, you could designate within your general
Where would-
It's
fund.
not with general funds.
Where are you going to?
Then
Where are you
900.
gonna take it from?
Then 900.
We're saying that's not a debt
You
service
can't.
payment. You can't.
Yeah, but if I take that 900,000, put it in general fund, and throw out
you
part,
can't
can't
put it
take
in
it.
general fund.
You can't put it in the general
transfer
fund to
it
begin
out
with.
of there.
$900,000, you have to pay debt service out of that fund. You can't move the money to the general fund. You're actually just paying the bill out of that fund. And to get out of a swap, that's not really debt service.
Right.
That's not paying down
so
your
I can't
bonds.
use any of that for this.
No.
Correct.
You could designate in fund balance, to do a designated fund balance for
You
Or
set-
assign
you-
it.
Okay,
setting
but
and assigning it.
but here's what I'm saying is
The source of the money
here's what I'm
could be
saying
from
is,
that.
but here's what I'm saying is, if you designate something in fund balance of $100,000, can I then take what it's all evenness aside, take $100,000 next year's budget and lower the debt service by $100,000 and take it from the 9?
Yes.
So in essence, I then paid it, took it out of the 9.
No, you're
You're
I
just
know
moving from one bucket to
I
the
didn't say I
next.
was no. I physically paid the 100 out of the 9
but what
towards
you're
our
paying,
debt service.
Correct. You're not.
Yeah, I
paying
agree.
the swap.
Okay, that's what I said. So can I do that? Can I
Yes.
take the 900, take 100 out of the debt service, and then designate in the general fund next year's budget 100,000?
All you're doing is paying out of different pockets.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But then that way we're not getting killed with $100,000 out of next year's fund balance, our general fund.
But you are.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Net-
Yeah, I'm
net.
taking.
For that debt
but it's a
payment.
net.
Not if you have to use the 100 that you
Okay,
designated.
what's
to
our
pay
debt
the
service
swap.
next year in our budget?
About $7 million.
Six-
Okay, so lower it by $100,000.
6.9.
Lower to 6.9. Take the 100,000 out of the and leave it you with 8, and then next year's budget, instead of budgeting 7 million, we're only budgeting 6.9.
Right, but you're designating that money aside to pay off this swap,
Yeah, I'm saying
not
in my
for debt service.
Yeah, I know. It's sitting in a general fund, and then we're earmarking
can't spend it
$100,000 so that if we hit the 1.3, you can take it out.
But you
What
still
difference
have
does
your
it
debt
make?
service payment next year of 7 million or 6.9.
Why? I can't budget only 6.9 instead of 7?
Why would you only budget 6.9?
Because I know I'm taking 100,000 out of the 9.
this year.
No, I'm talking next year.
For 12-13.
Yeah.
I thought
What I'm saying is next year's budget, instead of budgeting 7,
How is that? I'm just curious. What does that get us?
that will, in case we hit the point where we have only $100,000 difference, we're not just blowing our budget by $100,000.
but
you
the
could do that.
following year's budget, you still have to bring another $100,000 back
That's
because your
fine.
debt
That's fine.
So
Yeah, but you have that 900 you can use either for debt service, no matter what, or for capital.
Yeah, I know, but
projects.
my point is that if we decide to do that, and all of a sudden we're cutting a budget really close next year, and all of a sudden we're ready to pull the trigger, we got to come up with. We're basically, if we budget
Why would-
$100,000 for this and set it aside in a separate fund, we can designate for what we can leave it there.
Why wouldn't you just take it out of fund balance?
That's what I'm saying. You do.
So, I think it's a
It's
two-step.
a non sequitur.
I think it's a two-step.
I'm just asking. Maybe I'm not explaining myself. I'm just saying is set aside $100,000 out of the fund balance for this, the general fund. I'm sorry, the general
for
fund.
this, for the swap.
Yeah, but I don't want to necessarily.
So really,
What he's saying is designate some money out of the general fund balance specifically to
Pull the trigger.
close the swap, and then now you've in essence reduced your overall general fund balance that you can use for other purposes.
Correct.
So how do you fill the hole? Well, we're going to take the $900,000 and we're going to say, well, we're going to take $100,000 out of the 9, and we're going to pay the debt service for next year for that. And that means that's one less $100,000 that's coming out of the general fund balance to pay debt service.
Exactly. And then
Just for that year, but then the following year, that's $100,000 that you're short.
But then
Starting
again,
right out the bat.
but then I also have an extra $100,000 in my fund balance that if I don't get rid of the swap, I could use it again, or by that time we'll
But
probably.
once
Well, with
you-
the new categories, you have to commit that $100,000 in a board resolution, and then if you want to use that for something else, you
Too
then
late.
have
But
to
I don't do that.
uncommit.
But then I don't do that. Then it takes the hands out under Andrew's proposal that if it gets to 1.3 and we have 1.2 roughly in there, we know that's when you go ahead and get rid of the swap. Then we take us out of the mix.
Okay, well, before we go down that
You understand
road,
what I'm-
I see where you're going with it. Let's do this. In terms of the resolution, are we in agreement that we would make a recommendation to the board that we would pull the trigger at 1.3 automatically?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I think that makes sense. But
Is there any way that we can get a heads up from RBC or whoever the guys are when it's, I don't know, 1.5? So if we have time and we have a meeting coming up, or we can call a meeting, the board has an opportunity
fine, too.
to speak about it? And
I mean, I
get
could
that in a
certainly
resolution
email
or
the
something?
advi-
Because they're going to have it in. They can have some sort of trigger on there that says, "Hey, look, it hits 1.5. Call Daniel Boone," and then you guys can get the word out to us. And as a board, we need to call an emergency meeting, advertise to the public, or we may have a committee meeting one night that we can piggyback on and have a conversation about it at a public
Given that
meeting.
you have a meeting every 2 weeks, I don't really see that as a big problem.
Yeah, well, we have one more than every 2 weeks.
No, I meant even a voting meeting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we have a board meeting every 2 weeks, and then we have freaking I don't know how many committee meetings in between. So, yeah, at least 4 in between.
We have 4 standing committees.
Yeah, I know. And I was at 3 meetings this week alone. So I'm just saying, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for board members to get together and make a decision in the public view. Can you ask them?
I can ask them, and I can send them. The resolution was done by.
Yeah, my only
which is
concern was
Fox
that whole
Rothschild,
thing
and
of an
I can ask
emergency
them-
meeting. I don't think you want to go
I
there.
think the 1.3 is the right number. And I
That's
think
the
it's
number you want in here, but you also want something in there, or you want.
a trigger.
a paragraph that
You
says
want a
when it hits
trigger.
1.5, give us a call.
We're going to get a heads up from the
Yeah.
swap advisor.
Because they're going to want some direction from. That's what this is asking for, direction, right?
Right,
We're not
yes.
asking anybody to sell anything or close a deal.
This is giving me the direction that if it hits the 1.3, that I can do it without having to come back to the board.
That's correct.
But I
But
will
if it gets to
certainly-
1.5,
You'll have a heads up and know that there's a possibility it's coming.
right,
Yeah,
and then
but
we can have a
ask them.
conversation about where's the money coming from to close, and we can talk about
I was just trying to be
doing all
creative.
these other different
I will
things.
ask them if they can add a paragraph in there.
Even just to
giving
add a
us
sentence to the-
something, just that, once it hits 1.5, we will be notified, and then I will talk to the advisor and see if we can do that as well.
Okay.
I think we have a little bit of time, because as you see,
It's going the other
it
way.
keeps going up. It's going
And
the wrong way.
when we talked to him at Hasbro, he didn't seem real optimistic, so.
And by the way, I'm sorry, just trying to come up with creative ideas.
No, that's.
Sometimes
Are we
they
putting
stick.
something on for the
Sometimes
26th?
they stick,
That may be what we need to do. What?
Sometimes they stick, sometimes
I
they don't.
I think
if I can get it all tied up by then.
if she can get it tied up by the 26th, then we'll put it on the agenda.
All right, I'm just gonna
okay.
write
But
potential for-
no matter what, the finance committees will
Okay.
report out to the board that that's what we
Okay.
recommended. So.
I'm just putting potential for March 26th vote.
Try not to add too much. That is not fair to the rest of the board members.
Right. Okay. So, and then now it's sort of segueing into the 900,000. I've asked Kenny to kind of give us a list of some of his. Right now we have about $450,000 in our capital reserves altogether, and I've asked Kenny if he couldn't give us what he anticipates to be his next, capital expenditures over the next 3 to 5 years, and he's identified in the facilities committee at least. At the Birdsboro Elementary Center, that the chillers, all 3 chillers need to be replaced. They cost about $150,000 apiece, so there goes the capital reserve balance. And he's thinking about phasing them in over the next 3 years, but given our budget situation, I don't see how we're going to fund our capital reserve account to pay for these things or anything else that comes up in the next couple of years, because I think we're going to be looking at deficits. So that then begs the question of how much of this $900,000 or all of it do you set aside for capital reserves? Or do you use some of, I know some board members are thinking they want to use that to help balance the budget this year by making the debt service payment for 2012-13.
What's in there? 900 even?
900 and, what was it? You sent me an email with that in there.
Sorry.
916,512 in change.
It's about 900,000. So just, I'm not making any recommendations tonight because I don't have any information from Ken, but just have that in the back of your head as to what you're thinking, how you want to use that, utilize that money.
Now, again, I'm sorry, so I'm clear myself. If, say, sake of argument purposes, we designate half goes to general, half goes into capital reserve, half we pay down this year's debt. I'm sorry.
Just hold on. You can't move money into capital reserve. The money stays in this project fund.
Fine. Okay.
You
But
can
you
use it
for capital.
for capital
Okay.
improvements
Thank you.
for the district.
Okay.
Or you can pay down your debt.
Okay, so I leave.
The money stays here.
Okay, that's fine.
You would
Doesn't move
reduce
anywhere.
your-
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
you
I'm
would
sorry, I didn't mean to
reduce
word
your
it.
general fund
Okay,
budget
but-
by
okay.
the half, if that's what
So
you
we'll
want.
round off to 900 even.
Okay.
So if we designate 950 for those chillers, say, sake of argument.
940.
Well-
450 for it, I'm sorry.
Is that the 450 in the reserve or the 450 out of this account? So you
think-
have 450 in the
Say we
reserve.
take it out,
and then you
450 out
have
of this
9
account,
If we take 450 out of that account for
the
the chillers.
900,
Okay.
Okay, we can do that. We, the other
It's a
nine,
capital
the
the
other,
improvement.
550,
the other
Then you have to
five,
designate
the
it.
other 450,
450, right?
we pay down the, say we use it to pay down
We
debt.
pay debt next
So
year.
it's a 1 year hit, we pay down the debt, so theoretically for, say, I'm like, for sake of argument, we're $3 million away, we're now down to 2.55 or something.
Correct, in the general fund.
Difference. in the
Because you would
general fund.
actually reduce your general
Yeah,
fund
I mean, you're
expense
gonna-
by
Okay,
that
and
amount.
this- again-
That amount comes out of general
Okay,
fund
but I'm
budget.
saying is, so.
But next year, that the
That goes
following
back up. Okay, I understand that. I'm not asking, I understand.
It's a one-time
that. So, but the one-time fix, but we could, again, theoretically, and again, you asked us to think about this, we could take, say, half that money, three-quarters of money, whatever, and set some of it aside
Leave it
for
there.
those, leave it there for, quote, the chillers, or whatever you want to put it. The other one we can pay, so we can do that.
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
that's my question.
That
That's
was
sort of how
discussed
we're-
with the auditor.
That may be one way that you're going to bridge this $3.2 million.
Correct, and also do some
Of the work.
of the work.
Danielle-
Plus still maintaining your 400, and I don't have that number on me, but in the capital reserve.
capital
Thank you.
reserve,
For
yes.
other things like,
Correct.
whatever, windows,
Like for
flooring,
an
or whatever.
emergency or whatever.
That is
that-
correct.
Correct, that's my
Danielle-
question, that's what I'm
That's
asking.
correct.
Isn't there also the money that has to be released from escrow, that this really is more than 900,000?
There is.
You're talking about the escrow with Union Township?
Yeah.
We have
Well,
escrow
is
in
it-
capital reserve, and we have escrow in capital project fund.
When does that
And
get
it's
released?
18 months from the date of completion.
Okay,
That
so
should
when
be
was that?
sometimes, that should be in
It's,
April.
No. It's, Kenny and I did the math, and
It was
he-
completed in,
18 months, so it's a year and 6 months.
yeah.
And our
I'm with you so
occupancy.
far.
I don't know, whenever it
We
was.
got occupancy
year-
right before
Yeah.
September 1st,
Quick on your
whenever the
feet,
football
too.
season
How
started,
much
right?
is it, how much are in those two escrow funds?
We've already had it for 1 year.
It's in that.
Roughly, just an idea.
It should be like around April.
We should be just about ready to have that released.
Well,
Yeah, it should be April.
I have emailed.
Okay, for the sake of argument, say it's even.
I think it was,
June.
you had about $270,000 in there. Wasn't there two escrows? There was like 134, 140.
So now what can we do with that money?
That's the same.
It's
It's
capital
the same.
money.
This
part
amount,
that's
this
in-
amount, Kevin, is really about a little over $1 million.
Okay, so again-
But it's not until we get the money back.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. But again, so in other words, for sake of argument, so I'm clear, round off 300,000. I don't care, you said 270, whatever. That $300,000, we could use that for the chillers.
Sure.
It's
Technically
separate.
speaking.
Depending
You
on,
got some in reserve and some in projects. You got to be careful. Yes, you could designate some of it from reserve and some of it from
Okay, but we
project.
can use. part
On
of-
paper, this number will eventually grow to over $1 million.
In project.
in
in
project.
project, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So now, say it does grow to over 1 million, for sake of argument, it's over $1 million. We can then take, again, can we use any of it for any purposes we want? Meaning,
Same purposes.
Meaning same purposes, debt service and
In what fund?
The project,
the project fund.
In the
Yes.
project fund, yes.
We can, so even that money, the escrow money that would say be quote dumped in there.
Yes.
We can, it's the same two reasons.
Because it was bond proceeds that we had to
Okay,
use
so it's
to bring
projects
this-
or debt service.
Yes.
for that fund.
Okay,
Yes.
now, so again, I would ask them two questions. Can you tell us eventually, not necessarily tonight, what those are, when they're, basically more or less, when they're going to be released? Those two escrow money.
Well,
I mean, that, I think,
here's the issue: is I need Tom Pillion, who is and he doesn't respond to any of my emails. So Kenny
Who's
was,
Tom Pillion?
he was with
Project manager with Dave Horn.
with Dave Horn. I sent him way back when, trying to get some of the money back, because he has to do paperwork in order for me to be able to do
Call
this.
Dave Horn.
No, we'll call
I
Brian
have,
Supers.
Kenny and I have talked, it's been on my tickler, and he is supposed to help me with it. It's just,
Well, I haven't know.
Well,
Well,
a
here's
lot of times what it is, we can just call Carol at Union Township and ask her what forms she needs filled out. And they'll find, I mean, as a developer, I've got escrow funds all over the place. It's usually a simple matter of filling out
Well,
a
here-
form, submitting
yeah,
and saying release. They send their engineer out from SDE to inspect to make sure XYZ has been completed, and then they sign off and you get your funds. It's not, you don't need to have your engineer or your architect or somebody else file the fund.
It's almost
It's-
1.2 million.
I could go down to Union Township tomorrow and say, give me the forms I need to get an escrow release, and we'll fill them out, turn them in, and then it's up to the township to turn around
yeah,
and
now,
release them.
if you have a problem with that, ask Brian now. I mean, Brian would be quicker than I think the architect is.
But I'm just saying, we
Yeah, I
can do
I was
understand
it.
only doing the
You don't have to have
resources
Brian
that I
pay
know.
him
but I'm saying-
$350 an
no, I
hour to
agree
go
with
do
that,
it.
but I'm saying to you is, well, and but yeah,
I mean,
one
I
is-
think it's around $270,000.
I'll start getting involved.
I think first you have to find out, are you closer to 18 months or are you closer to 12 months?
Well, think about it. We had to get our UNO before the first football game.
Correct, which would be September, let's just say
You should be
September
out.
1
It should
for
be right.
argument's
Yeah, it
sake.
should be,
It should be, we should be done right now this month. We
September,
should be
October,
done.
November, December, January, February,
well,
March.
I've had.
You're actually 7. You're actually, this should be 19 months. I mean, if you give and
I'm on
take.
top of it as much as I can.
No, no, I'm
be
not
in
saying
my
you're
own-
not, but
No, we're not.
we're
No,
not.
let's-
We're
no.
not-
It's not like we're going to use the money tomorrow anyway.
No, we're
So
not- we're not-
I think what we're just saying is, obviously that money's there too, and we need to be thinking about that in terms of
Again,
The
overall
only reason I
funding our
mentioned
capital
it is that
requirements.
it's a significant amount here. It's
Well,
not,
that-
it's not
I mean,
50 grand,
that's-
it's almost 300 grand. That's
We
going to
don't get
change that
interest- we don't get interest.
$900,000 number when we get it.
Yeah, we are.
we are
They're
interested.
in.
They
should
They're
be
in an
on- they should
account
be
that we
interest-bearing
hold,
accounts.
and they are getting some.
But
It's
still.
not much, but
Yeah, I
we're
was gonna
getting.
say,
Probably not
I'd
even
rather-
making
We're getting
inflation.
interest on it.
One.
We need every penny we can
No,
get.
no,
our
but I'm
hands
saying it's
on.
not much, but still.
It's something.
It's ours,
It's
let's get it
not
back.
that Union Township's getting it. We're getting
No,
it.
no, well, let's get it back.
That's the whole point.
And I,
Okay, that's
I
what-
it's been
okay.
on my
It's the
tickler.
district's
That's
money, we
why
need to
it's
get it
there
back.
every month. So,
Get on to it. Sick.
Well, I mean, yeah, just call Carol at the township building and
and
say,
ask her for whatever forms I
you
need
say,
to
look, we
release
want to
the
get an escrow release for the stadium project. It's been done. It's been completed over 18 months since we got our UNO.
Danielle, I'll call Tom Killian and Dave Horn tomorrow.
Can you email over to us the forms you need us to fill out, and so we can make the request? It'll usually go in front of the township. They'll call SDE. SDE will go out and they'll take a look and they'll walk the site and they'll make sure everything's done. They may have a punch list of things that maybe Kenny has to address. Once he's addressed it, it goes back to the supervisors. The supervisors will vote
too much
to release
money
the
to
escrow
release the
funds.
escrow.
So it may take a month or two in terms of getting through the process. But Union Township would be happy to release the
I
escrow.
just need to know the actual specific dates, and I think Kenny, I didn't get them. I need to know the specific dates for the stadium as well as when the parking is completed, so I can count to 18 months. Like,
Yeah, I
need
mean, there's
that.
two separate releases, so,
But
I mean, one's for the
didn't we
stadium,
get-
one's for the parking.
Right, and didn't
No,
we
no,
get
no.
an extension
I'm
with the
guarding that
stadium?
money like
So does it
like a
start
bloodhound.
when we first got the occupancy, or did it start when we got the
Final.
final? I have to reread the
One
agreement.
was with the parking and one was with the stadium, so I think you get the release for the stadium, we're probably over that by a month.
Yep.
And when the parking, I thought we got the parking done
Month
by the
later.
end of
Yeah, but I thought
November.
the stadium, we had
I
a
thought you had to wait till you had the
original,
con-
and then we had like a fine, like we
Didn't
had
we
a
have a
temporary, and then we had a
the
final.
construct the?
Let's put it this way, we're in the
Penny should
neighborhood.
Call,
have it.
you
Yeah.
call Carol, she'll have the dates.
Yeah, Kenny should have the dates too.
Well, I'm
Okay.
trying.
Well, didn't
it's not
we-
just
didn't
sitting
we-
there. I'm trying to get
Kenny,
it.
get on the get your ass.
Didn't we file some documents that we should just be able to pull up and they have dates on them and we can
Yeah, but they
just,
still come out.
You'll have the
I don't
occupancy
have
permit.
them.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
There
we
should be
have
the
them.
occupancy permit
He
somewhere.
does.
We have them.
I
date.
don't.
No,
That's
Kenny
the
does.
problem.
No, Kenny does, the township does.
Kenny does. Yeah.
Even if Kenny lost it, the township has it.
No, we have
We
it.
should have made him come tonight.
Kenny has it.
It's okay. I mean,
No, I'm just kidding. We should have. But no, seriously. Anyway, enough people are here. Follow through. It's
I have been.
Not you. You don't take things so personal. I mean, you guys as a district follow through and get us the money.
it is our
It's
money. It's not
I know,
going
but it's
anywhere.
not. I know, but it's not little you. You understand?
So it's about $1.2 million.
I'll call Kenny tomorrow. I'll call Kenny
No,
tonight.
I'll
Bust him.
talk to Kenny.
No, I'll
tomorrow.
call Kenny
That's
on my way
fine.
home.
It was on my tickler at the beginning of
bother
February,
him.
and we pushed. We pushed it off.
Okay,
What
so-
can I say?
Chillers there.
All right, so that was the other one. So let's move on. Okay, I think we've beaten that horse to death. All right, so that was the capital reserves, that's a debt. Commerce Bank. Will, let me ask the question here. Since we're going to be coming up on budget talk soon, we're going to get a date together to have a budget meeting. I'm just kind of curious, do you guys want to have anybody bring their budgets to this committee first to kind of do a deep a dive, or just take it to the board?
I would do, again, you're looking at me asking me, I would do it the same way we did every other year.
Okay.
I think we throw it out to the whole board at once. I think, I know I'm not speaking for Walt, but I think Walt would appreciate that.
Oh, he
We did
wants
the
to
last
see it.
year. That's what I mean. I think we'd be wasting another night
Okay.
in here without. One thing I would ask is, I think we need to set a date like that. We think we should do.
Well, we'll do that at the board meeting.
Yeah, we need to really do that. We're really behind.
But at
that.
the same time, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we do one earlier?
I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, we've been waiting. It hasn't been until the last week that we've actually started to get some information. So whether it was from PDE on their stuff, it was Anne Marie with her stuff. I know Meet and Discuss, you guys have been working on some things, and you still are. Is there any other news that we should be aware of from the state about anything, any other adjustments? Or
Everything's flat with the state, nothing that, we have our exceptions approved. We have the curtailments, which I think, if I can just throw my plug in, we need to do something yay or nay with those quickly, because they're going to impact staff and decisions we have to make and notifications we have to give. So,
Can I make a suggestion? Can we do on April 9th? It's a Monday night.
Well,
I think
we're missing
That's
6
Easter
other
Monday.
people here to have that.
No, but I mean,
conversation.
I think, huh?
that's Easter Monday, district shut down.
Some people are out of town.
I think we have to pick a date before the 26th. In
Maybe-
other words, I think you could email everybody
maybe
and
the
get a
10th.
consensus. I think we should try to come up with a date, and not to be rude. I think you should email Andrew. You should email people and say, give them 2 dates, and whatever the majority of those 5 people could be.
All right, well, I'll
at least
try the
5 or
10th,
6.
which is the Tuesday.
And pick another date.
Here's what my thoughts are, is if you're going to have departments coming out, I think Kevin's right that you need to pick a date, because you need to be fair and let those people
Well,
get
that's what I'm
ready
saying.
and prepare. The second thing is by May 4th, which is a Friday,
Wow.
I need to know where the board's at, because the
Correct.
committee of the whole in May, I need to have a preliminary or a proposed final to the board to vote on this voting meeting in May. So in order to give me a little bit of time to finalize whatever the board decides, we're only looking, you have like the month of April, that's it.
Okay, well, okay.
Well, we may have to have one earlier.
And listen, okay, next week I think you can't do it. It's way too quick. A turnaround. I don't think anybody would be
For
prepared,
the
so it's not
department
fair.
heads, I think it's.
And not to be following the last
Well,
week of
I
March.
mean, just as far as bringing the department heads again, remember, everybody's down.
Okay, well, no,
in terms of, there's
and if I can
no
make a
increases
suggestion-
in anybody's budget.
Well, first of all, the last week of March will be very hard for me. I'm out of
What about
town.
the first week of April?
I think the first week of April, even though, no way, I know.
It's Monday,
no, wait.
Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because I know when Thursday and Friday schools are closed. Andrew, my other point is, I think if any other committee meetings are that first week of April, I'm
Well,
sorry, I think this
They
supersedes
got to get
that.
bumped, yeah. Well, we'll shoot for the first week of
And I
April.
know, no disrespect to anybody else's committees, because I know sometimes people have like building ground, whatever. And I'm sorry, I don't know all the dates, but I think you do it. I think you do it the second, third, or fourth. You plan and you say, these are the dates. Pick one of them, your first choice. And as soon as you have 5 board members, that's the night you do it. I mean, again, that's my suggestion. And if anybody else says, "Why would my committee's doing that?" I don't care whose it is. You say, "Listen, this needs to take precedent."
Now,
over it.
Andrew, you had asked some questions. I have been working on the budget,
Yeah.
and BCTC came in with their proposed final, so I've adjusted numbers from what they put in to what I had in.
Would they go up or down?
They went down. I adjusted part of what Anne Marie presented the other night were the retirements. We know we're taking them because
Correct.
they're retiring, and we have to replace them with
Correct.
staff. I've going to make a recommendation to the board to reduce revenue for the transportation subsidy based
About
off
April
of
2nd.
everything that I've learned. So there's things that I have, like that sheet that we had used last year,
Yeah.
to show the board that
Well, I
I've
was going to ask
actually
you that,
reduced
because
it
I was actually pulling up
some.
that sheet, and I was like, you had mentioned we had these exceptions or whatever had come in too, but I don't know what they are. So it'd be nice to get all that on that master Excel spreadsheet again.
I've started
This
that.
is where we are, and these are the adjustments I've made to date.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we want to make some other adjustments as a board, whether it's physical fees or activity fees or some other type of fee, whatever, on the revenue side, or it's taxes or it's fund balance. Now, I did think this board had recommended, or this committee had recommended, setting aside $1.5 million from fund balance
in the preliminary.
in the preliminary to sort of plug a hole. So we need to show that on there. We need to show the total available fund balance all those different little cells that we had on there. And quite frankly, if you can send that out to whole board
Well, that's
this
what I was
week-
just going to say. Well,
Oh, do you
I
need
can.
another day or
once,
two?
Well, I'm in the middle of several things. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I have the changes that I did, but to get all that other stuff on there, it'll take me maybe a day. That's fine. But I was going to say,
If you can get that out
Just-
before the next board meeting, that would be ideal.
I was even going to say before the next budget meeting. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly do that. Yes.
Well, because we can talk about some of those things as a board then at the voting meeting if we wanted to.
Yep.
And that gives us an opportunity to kind of set the stage.
No
for
later
that.
than Wednesday of next week. I'll have
That'd
it
be
out.
great.
Can I make? I'm sorry, can I make a? First of all, can you pick one for the April 2nd and make it April 16th? Might as well pick another date right after that.
Well, the 16th.
April
I'm sorry,
16th is the
whatever.
board meeting.
Oh, okay, on the 9th then or something.
Isn't
Maybe plan on 2 right away, Andrew. Pick up 2 dates in April, the good day, because we're not going to get this done in one night. So I would, if you're
I
going
think
to
the
send an email,
23rd is a board meeting, isn't it?
I think
don't
it's
know, whatever.
the
23rd is
Oh,
a board
sorry.
meeting.
it's the 16th and the 23rd.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my suggestion
My
would be,
mistake.
why don't you pick
16th.
maybe even April 2nd and April 9th?
No, the
Well,
9th
the
is the
9th
board
Ninth
meeting.
Oh, I'm
is
sorry, then the
Monday.
16th
The
I
9th
would.
is the committee of the whole.
You're saying the first 2 weeks of April.
Well, do you,
Yeah.
why,
No, the 9th is
could
Easter
you
Monday.
have it?
Oh,
Here's
okay.
a suggestion.
What about that
we
Wednesday?
normally have
Wednesday.
on the 16th.
The
which
committee of
is
the whole's been moved because of
the
Easter
committee
Monday.
of the 16th is the committee of the
Okay.
whole. Normally we have finance before that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Could
what?
you have your budget workshop then instead of
Yeah,
finance?
yeah, or no, because I don't think you'll have enough time. I think
You
an
will
hour
have
doesn't
already
be
had a
enough.
budget workshop on the 2nd, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, but I think.
Or
we'll-
if you started it at 6, that gives you an hour
Yeah,
and
you
a half.
could. You could. Or my suggestion would be like the 2nd and the 10th.
Or, yeah, I mean, we'll look.
If
I
we don't
think
need
we
the
had
10th
tentatively
we don't need the
set.
10th, we can
I don't know
cancel.
why. What is that? Oh, that's a different finance committee meeting.
I mean, we
Okay.
do it. Why can't we do it the 2nd and 10th? And the other thing is, I would suggest that everybody.
I can't do it on the 10th.
Okay, you can do it on the 11th.
11th I can do.
Okay, so why don't you tentatively ask the board members to do it the 2nd and the 11th, and also that after Danielle, for your sake, for the first one, we can't ask you for any other information past the 28th of March. You know what I mean? In other words, we can't keep asking you to come up with, can you add this, can you add this, can you add this to budget?
Well, look.
There has to be a certain deadline for you to.
What is she
discuss
gonna?
something.
What is she? She's gonna update it up until that point, and she's gonna send it out.
Yeah,
to
but
us.
I'm saying is any deep, you know what I mean? In fairness, I don't think, if somebody wants an analysis or whatever, maybe it shouldn't be past the 29th or something, because you can't come to you on Monday the 2nd at noon
course
time and
not.
start asking you for some
No,
information.
well, of course not.
You know what I
Quite
mean? I don't think
frankly,
it's for you, but I think the 2nd and the 11th, I think we need to schedule 2 right away.
Well, the
think-
facilities meeting is on the 2nd.
Again,
We gotta
I
cancel.
think we can push that off. I mean,
Is there anything
They
pressing?
need to
I
go
don't
on
think there
hiatus.
is.
I
No,
don't think there
they can
is.
go on hiatus.
I think almost every committee, unless it's an absolute, they have a.
well, look, come April. I mean,
Well, I
everything's
guess
got to
April
step aside for the
11th
budget.
Is the
Thank you.
revenue policy, so that.
Again, I think.
I think they
Saying
could probably
April 2nd
we could
and
reschedule
April
those.
11th.
Again, that's no way. I would tentatively until Andrew gets it.
Well, I can
an
just
answer.
tell you that personally, I'm not available the 17th or the 24th, if that makes a
Okay,
difference.
and I think the second and the 11th.
Well, yeah, it's going to make a
I mean,
difference to
well-
us.
Well, yeah, it's going to make a difference.
I know. Yeah, but I mean, I'm just giving you the
Well,
numbers.
okay,
I'm
so
not making
so
the.
if you, and as soon as you get 5, I would say, Andrew. Again, you have 5. We have to do it.
Are you guys going to have some meetings? I mean, you guys. I mean, meet and discuss. Do you have anything scheduled before these?
Walt told me he's moving forward with
Walt
that.
has one we're pretty much done, and then he's going to go on to the second one.
I
But
know
I don't
you got
think,
the one pretty much wrapped
But
up.
I
I was
think
wondering about
he,
the other one, which
I think
is
the next one he's going to do the last week of March, and because I'm not here and it won't, I can't do it anyway.
okay.
I think he was just talking about.
Am I going to be able to utilize the information that I received today for this budget
think so.
meeting or not? No.
That budget
based
meeting's not
on
for
last
another 2
night?
weeks.
Yes.
I would say yes, you could use it based on last night.
I can start working on that now and have
Yes.
that as part of
I would
that
say yes
sheet.
because
So there's a
yes.
handshake.
Yeah, I would say yes because I don't.
And that's
see
at least
why
2
it
weeks
won't
from
go-
now.
Yeah, and I don't see why it won't go through.
I need a clarification, though, if I could get one maybe from you after the meeting.
That's fine. And again, it's tentative, but I think you're good to go
Okay.
with what. Yeah.
I know we're
Now,
talking.
your
in-
question is,
sorry.
I think he's now going to switch to the next one, which I think he was going to try to do not next week, but the week after, which I'm not here, but I can't do it anyway. I believe, or the other, it might have been another one, but either way, I think we're good to go. By the second, you'll have at least again, that's why I said, at least you can do one more, excuse me, there's been so many changes last time, at least we have the first meeting in April 2nd to do all the changes you've done so far.
And they're just changes that I've done that I've
by the
been
11th
receiving
again,
and
we
knowing.
can do
You know,
it.
actually on that spreadsheet, put on there all the options. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? No, don't hold back on for political reasons. I know last year, you know, board members didn't want to see certain things on there, and others did, and just put everything on there so we know what's what. Even if it's just like we did last year,
Yeah.
we had green light, yellow light, red light. There may be some things there nobody wants to touch, but I think we need to see them.
You know, the list is a lot shorter this year.
Well, I know that, but
No,
I mean,
that's fine.
you got 3 PDE approvals.
Correct.
Put those on there with the
Okay.
numbers.
Yep.
Put
That'll be
everything
there.
on there. The kitchen sink, you guys had
And
thrown
can
out
you-
the sports thing at the beginning of the year here.
Yep.
Put that on so people are aware of what that is.
already
Doesn't mean
done.
we're voting for it, but at least we know what our
And
options
can you
are.
also put the,
Yeah, it's already done.
can you put the index plus the exemptions?
Yeah, she's doing that. That was
That's
on the
part
upper
of that
right-hand
sheet,
corner.
But I might have to revise my Wednesday if we need to do red light, green light, because I need to know what that information is and
Well, I think-
calculate
No,
that.
I think he just wants a list.
He
Just
wants
put the
a
list on.
But I'm saying, what's the list?
He has
Well,
that.
mean-
But I'm saying I may need to, if there's something that hasn't been brought up, I will need to
we'll
calculate
figure it out.
Gary has
Mm-hmm.
that.
We'll figure it out.
Gary has those. But
I
anyway,
think that
let's pick those, set aside those 2 dates.
I mean, it could be anything in here. It could be, you know, whatever.
Correct.
Furloughing of aides, if there's any. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at last year's list.
No aids this
and
year.
by that time, Danielle, those escrow.
Medical plan, there was a reduction of
Well, that's not
secretaries. I
gonna
mean,
be
have you
on
guys
that
looked at
sheet,
that
but-
stuff too? Secretaries, administrative
But you'll have
staff.
a time frame when,
Yeah.
We had the high school
Yes, I
principal
will.
thing before. Is that coming back on, or is that?
No,
Winter
I'm not
guard, color
recommending that
guard.
one. Well, the winter guard and the color guard would be a part of the extracurricular for you. But no, that hasn't been thrown out there yet.
We should go.
Um,
Well, we'll see.
I have a question.
do it together.
Okay, I have a question. Can we do this then? Here's what you, Andrew, you might want to be able to do. Can we do a finance meeting on the 26th for like a half hour to make sure we have everything to go out to
yeah,
discuss in a
I
second?
don't think it's a problem.
In other words, the questions you're asking,
We can
work
vet
with Dr.
first.
Otto, and then the finance committee can at least get.
So
make
you
sure-
want to see the preliminary sheet before it goes out?
That way we can at least vet it.
So it won't
It
be.
might be thing because I'm sure Andrew and somebody might think of something that maybe will be on there then before the workshop.
So
And
you're
that's
talking
what
7 o'clock then?
I'm talking like a half hour just to go through your sheet and say, okay, this is the stuff. Maybe someone will look at it. Maybe that's not right though. I don't know. Think about that, Andrew. It's not the rest.
Well,
of the
you know, you could
The
send it
voting
out. I mean, you could. We could be doing this via email too.
Give it to
Last
everybody.
year,
Give it
that's
to
what we,
everybody.
last year what
As
happened
soon as
was
it's
we
done,
were
I can email
Just
it to
email it to
them.
everybody.
I-
Just
email to email to
I
everybody.
email it to everybody. That's even
Just
yeah,
discuss it here. If they want to
Yeah,
come and
that's
hear
fine.
it, they can
Okay.
come and hear it.
Sorry.
I'll show you what we're talking about. So what we did last year was we actually put a spreadsheet together. It showed what was the preliminary budget number we started with in terms of revenues. What was the preliminary budget in terms of expenses? Here's the deficit, right? And then here's a list of all the suggestions of things that we can do to balance the budget. And so we had on there the Act 1 increase plus any special exceptions and what that would mean in dollars. Should we elect to choose those things? That would be a revenue source. We had our total fund balance as a source of cash that we could use. We had, and then what happened was, and then we had a whole list of different things that we were going to cut. We had the activity fees on there as a source of revenue, all sorts of different things. And then what happened was the administration kind of did a red, yellow, green. So green, we endorse these cuts. Yellow, it's a little sketchy. Red, we don't really support these things, but if you got to go somewhere, it's your choice.
That's the final
okay?
straw.
And so that kind of helped frame the debate about what was coming from where and how we're going to piece this thing together to solve it. So it actually worked out pretty well, I thought, in terms of framing the issues for folks. So, and that was updated like literally every 2 weeks. I mean, as we went through it, we were updating it every 2 weeks. I mean, I'm looking at the dates here, and it was like some of them was every 3 days, for crying out loud. So, yeah. Do you want? Well, you know what? Do you have this one? Where you can get in here and you can click the yes, no, and
I'm not,
No.
just, I think.
Well, I'll modify what.
As a tool we used last year, I think that was good for last year. I think our circumstances are a little different, and
Well, the list is going to be a lot smaller. that's
exactly,
all.
and I think conceptually there are some things too that have happened this year that we just can't even tap this year. So, I mean, it's still a good concept, and we can certainly try to. I don't know that it'll look exactly like that.
I just think the
I'm
list
sorry.
is going to be smaller. That's
Yeah.
all.
What time do you want to start these workshops?
I think we'd have to start them at 7.
Okay, I'm just asking, I'm putting it in here.
I think to give the public ample
Okay,
time to
again,
get
I'm
here.
just-
And board members. I mean, you
Right,
know.
6 o'clock is tough. That's just.
Are we setting limits, or are we just going?
Yeah, 2 hours.
2? I think you give it at least 3. I mean, if we can get done, we get done. If we don't,
Okay, I'll go.
I mean, we don't have a lot of time.
Dude, I'm not pulling at midnight.
Listen,
I know, I'm just saying,
To be
I'm not
honest
pulling
with you,
at midnight.
I think.
I think 3 hours is enough time to get
I was
through
gonna,
what
I
we
think
have to get through.
the decisions are going to.
And these will be workshops. We'll allow
crystal
some
clear.
public comment at the end, but
How about-
would
yeah,
be trying to get through the business of the workshop first, and then we can take public comment and go from there. Speaking of public comment, Mr. Schott, I didn't want to leave you in the back there.
About budget talks, and you said exemptions have been approved. Exemptions, what?
Well, the exceptions, tax exceptions
I
beyond the
used
Act
the wrong
1.
word.
Okay.
So we have, I guess the school district had applied
Special ed.
for, we had 4 of them last year we could apply for, and now we only have
2.
We only have
Special
2,
ed,
special ed and
I believe
Peasers.
it was retirement.
Those are the two, okay.
Correct.
Do you know what those numbers are?
The
Oh,
other
well, never
question I
mind.
have is,
I don't have it here.
You talk about the 916,000, we could add to that to be even 1.2. You said it could pay debt or projects. So does that mean, let's say you need something done next year. You decided you need it next fiscal year. So instead of having to find new revenue for that, you can use this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has to be
I know.
a capital
Yeah.
project in
Right.
nature, like a roof or
Yes,
chillers or
that's
something.
what I mean.
Yes.
Yes.
But you wouldn't have to
That's
find
correct.
new revenue
No.
for those types of things.
You're right.
The constraint that we have is we only have
It's always been there,
$450,000 in our capital reserves.
It's been there. That 900,000 has been there for us to do that with. It's just at a point now that I brought to the board's attention, we didn't have any more huge projects on the horizon, so we have money sitting there that we need to decide what we're doing with. One option of which was to pay
Anything
down
that's a
debt.
capital project.
The auditors finally gave us the clearance to say this money is kind of free of any encumbrances or needs.
And the last question I have is, when you were talking about the type of forms to give the board so it's more understandable.
Mm-hmm.
The board report.
Yeah.
Treasurer's report.
If I'm wrong, tell me. Last year, you got notice that you could get PlanCon money after your budget was already done. Right? That wasn't applied for the middle school. That was after your budget
The
was
middle
done.
school.
It was-
The money came in after.
No. The
We had
one you
applied for it.
You applied late for because the previous
Yeah, but-
administration didn't do it. Right?
We did apply late, yeah, so, yeah,
Right.
go on with your,
But then, my understanding is, if I'm wrong, tell me, there was another 700,000 that you didn't spend, had,
Yeah.
that you didn't
Fund
think you
balance.
had when you adopted
No.
the budget.
so what happened was there was 2 things. So one was, we applied for some PlanCon J money. We
Right.
weren't sure when it was going to go in, and it hit after
Right.
we had our budget discussions and set our budget. Okay, so that went into our fund balance. And then we had planned to spend down in our fund balance like $750,000, and we didn't
That's correct.
spend it all down. So we didn't spend any of it down. So we actually spent,
We didn't, we had a surplus.
That-
we had a surplus of like $100,000.
Correct.
So we didn't, we had planned in our budget to spend 750 regardless of the PlanCon J, and we actually ended up with a surplus of 100. So there's 800 and some odd $1,000 there that we didn't spend that we had planned for. We had actually planned to spend.
I thought the whole thing was 1.4 million, 700,000.
It's actually like a it's 1.726 million swing.
Okay. it just seems to me, and if I'm wrong, tell me, that when you adopted the budget in June of last year, okay, you underspent. And I'll just use the number 700,000.
800.
And I guess I'm asking, how didn't you know that when you adopted the budget? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think that gets back to the earlier discussion that we were having in terms of how we tracking our costs on a monthly basis to know. And I think the problem is our reports that they come out, it says, this is what your budget is, and this is what you spent year to date. What our budget doesn't do, what these forms don't do, is say, that'd be great if all of our expenses, we spent the same amount of money every single month. Then we could say, yeah, we're on track or we're off track because we got X number of months left, and this is how much money is left to just divide it by the number of months, and boom, we're on track or not. Problem is, our budget is lumpy, and the reports that we get don't reflect the lumpiness of the budget expenditures. So you don't know right now if Danielle generates a report that says you've spent, pick a number, $40 million out of the $50 million. We don't know if in April and May and June, are we going to spend $10 million more, or are we going to spend 15? The report doesn't show you that. So that's what we got to work on in order to, and Danielle's got to, there's a lot of work that goes into that for her to figure that out, and so she does her best to estimate where we're going to be.
It just seems like 700,000 is a lot to be off, and I'm glad it was off this way as opposed to off the other way.
But again,
it's less than 1 or 2% of the overall budget.
Yeah, some of that was the
some of it
freeze.
was we froze spending last year. But again, she tried. Danielle, they
Trust me, we were asking her every
they
month.
do the best they can.
We were asking, because I asked Danielle every month, are we good? Are we not good? And she was like, well, I think we're at 120. I think we're at, and she was giving us estimates, but we had no idea of knowing exactly where we were going to land.
Just like, for example, I was asked today, I did projections in December for this budget. I'm projecting at that point like about $498,000 in fund balance we would use. January I was at 190
right.
that we were going to use.
Yeah, I've got it in my
But
email.
for February, I have no idea what that number is going to be yet because I didn't do it. So it could go back up to 600,000 or it could go.
And I
and
understand
the
that.
swings are so large that I don't
understand
know.
you're looking at May 1st also.
Correct.
You're deciding on something. But then again, you don't adopt this thing to June 23rd or something like that.
Yeah, but
So
we
you don't
don't-
have the June 1st numbers.
That's correct. We don't.
You don't have the June 1st numbers?
No,
June
not by the end of
23rd?
no. She might not be able. She might not provide.
No,
it.
because we have our teacher lump sums won't be by that time, and
Correct.
that's a big part of, like, wherever I'm at June 1st, I still have another millions of dollars for that lump sum
She
pays.
tries to project the best she can from June in June 26th what it will be. It's
I'm
not.
just saying, I think 700, to be off by 700,000,
No.
I just think that's
Okay.
a lot to be off.
What else is left?
We were off by 1.4%. You see what I'm saying? When you're trying to estimate a $50 million budget, we were off by 700,000. I mean, we were off by 1.4%. That's certainly within tolerance of, you know what I'm saying? Like, usually a variance of 1.4% plus or minus.
But it's 1.4% in the last month. I mean, you've had time to adjust.
It's over 12 months.
No, it's not. It's over 12 months.
I think the problem, like, this is exactly what we're talking about. Like, if we knew what our expenses were and then what we were spending relative to those expenses, then you could say, yeah, we're here and we're supposed to be here, so now we know how much we're going to land it. The problem is we're estimating like this against something that's doing like this. So you have no idea. And that's one of my biggest frustrations over the last 3 years.
I don't think
is how we can get that narrowed down so we know month to month. You were supposed to spend in this month, historically, in facilities, you spend, pick a number, $300,000 in the month of March in facilities. You spent $400,000 in the month of March. You're over budget by $100,000 this month. Why? Are you going to be under budget next month by 100 so that we're back on track? And that's where we need to get
And
to.
I think, correct me if I'm
But-
wrong, I believe the PlanCon money contributed to the variance.
No, this is aside from that. That's outside from that. That would have
That would've been-
exasperated the
yeah.
variance by another
But again, I think 1%
1.5%.
over 10. I mean, now if it was 5 or 10%, I'd
Oh,
have
okay,
been
you're
more
right.
concerned.
Yeah, I see what
1%.
you're
Our total surplus was like 900,000, so the PlanCon did have a part of that.
Correct.
No, it did.
I mean,
No,
the
I'm just
total-
taking, if you took
We're
the
talking,
700
we're talking
alone.
$7,000. But I agree with Andrew. 1%'s not bad. Now, if it's 5 or 10%, she was off, then I'd be a little concerned about it.
Then somebody should be, really.
Did you think on May 1st that you were going to be underspending for the whole year? Yes.
I did not.
No, we don't know that.
You don't
No.
know that by May 1st?
I was thinking, I think I was either, we were even or I
Even
was
or
under a
under.
little
Yeah,
bit.
we don't know.
If I would go back to May 1st.
You're talking $50 million.
You still have 2 months of
Why you wouldn't know
operating.
what your
Look.
potential expenses are going to be in June.
Okay.
And look,
okay,
and I agree with you, Tom, because the way this is, I mean, $700,000 is a lot of money, right? Because $700,000 is kindergarten, or $7,000 is the tax raise that we just had. Depending on what issue is important to you, $700,000 is a lot of aids. Okay, so $700,000 means a lot of things, and so the degree that we can figure out a way to refine that, so that we can more accurately predict where we're going to end up on fund balance at the end of the year, so we know, gee, we're over or under, or that money's available or it's not available, then I think that's the goal that we need to work towards. But I don't think we're sweeping it under the rug and saying it's not important. It is important, but we're...
And again, how do you know what your electric bill is going to be? School was delayed by 5 days because of snowstorms. Now we're air conditioning buildings for an extra 5 days. That just threw off your 5 days of your electrical budget for the month of June.
I understand.
So you don't, I mean, you know what I mean? There's the variables. Yeah, you think your electricity bill is going to be, I don't know, say $500,000 for May and June. Now it's $700,000 because we added 5 extra days that happen to be all in the 90s instead of in the 70s. Now this winter we're saving probably on, I guess we're not heating as much because it's a mild winter, but now we could be air conditioning our schools, so as soon as our electric bill is going to go higher. She does the best she can.
That's a
and
good
the time.
example.
You can't do every department.
No, but when
Yeah,
I do that projection, I'm trying to do every single department, the whole entire budget.
That's what I'm saying
Now,
to
I
you.
don't know what special ed still has left to spend.
There's
I
no
can
way-
only
yeah, how do
go
we know?
off of what was spent year to date and look back at last year
Correct.
and
And
the
there could
following year
be-
and try
there
to
could
do
be
that.
2 or
I don't
3
know
new
if she has
placements that we
bills
aren't
for a
anticipating.
couple
Some
hundred
special ed in the
thousand.
month
I
of
mean,
May.
it's the best I.
We could send 2 students out in the month of May and June for special
Quite
ed.
frankly-
I think he gets the point.
Okay,
I think he
that's
gets the
fine.
point.
Yeah,
So
okay, go ahead.
it's not beat up on Tom Shat time.
No,
So-
I'm not beating up on it. I'm trying to explain it to him.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
you make a good point. I mean, $700,000 is a lot of money, and quite frankly, if you polled each board member, one board member would say, well, we shouldn't have raised taxes $600,000. Somebody else might say, hey, I would have kept another 30 aides. Somebody else would have said, I wouldn't have cut kindergarten.
Correct.
Yeah.
If we knew that, sure, it would change. If I
That's
knew that, it would
crystal
change
ball
our
mentality,
philosophy. Yeah. That's
So
right.
I think
We all
our
have
job,
crystal
and
ball.
I think our goal, at least my goal, is over the next couple of years, is figure out what kind of pro forma can we create that's going to help us more accurately
Get that
predict
0.5%.
those things.
I
so that-
welcome that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think everybody would welcome that, right?
Yeah,
Because then
you-
we could say, look, with a relative certainty here, you're not going to have to do this or this or this because we're going to be over or we're going to be under or whatever it is. Or, hell, you may be overspending more than we've anticipated, and we may say, look, you're going to have to raise taxes more. You're going to have to cut more programs because we don't have the money.
But you can change your budget right up to the 20th.
Right up to the
Correct.
No, we can go
up to the
30th.
To the
30th.
30th.
Go up to the 30th, whenever you,
You can actually reopen it.
when you vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. What time is it? 8:30. Okay. This won't be. I don't think this will be much longer here. The only other things I sort of really had on here was, I know you guys have your plate full. Have you guys ever put that together, sort of a finance committee calendar of things that we need to be talking about in a given month?
I haven't, to be quite honest,
Okay.
because it's the last thing on my list. I know that sounds
It's the last thing
horrible,
on my
but
list all the time, too. Trust me, I've got a punch list at home on my desk that's got like 18 different projects, and I don't get to them from one week to the next. I'm just asking the question.
And to be quite honest with you, this is really the first
Time-
year
Yeah.
that we've had regular finance committee meetings
Yeah.
from last December. I'm not trying to be
I
a
wasn't on that committee.
Weisenheimer. I mean,
Yeah, I get it.
Let the record show. Let's just say let the record
I
show.
wasn't on that committee. So.
No. And so that's my point was, and I'm actually pushing all the committees to do this.
I know.
So that everybody, because, all of us aren't going to be here forever, and certain things need to be addressed every year. And so I just want to I kind of throw that out there. That's mine. What else do you have on yours?
I was just carrying the multi-year budget, which we're working on.
Interdepartmental billing, I don't think that's high on your list so far, but that's something as a board we're going to have to push towards. And then the other one I was thinking of was, and this is because I had this on my list from last year, Dr. Otto, maybe this is more directed at you. What can we do to incent our department heads and everybody else to get their bills in on time to the finance committee, or to our finance department over here, in terms of year end and all that other kind of stuff? Because last year we ran into an issue in the fall where we were beating down their door to say, look, we want to review the budget. How do we end up? Were we up, down, where do we go? And they weren't getting the numbers in until September. 2 months, it's like everybody checks out for vacation and nobody's forwarding their numbers and their invoices and everything else is supposed to be paid. And these guys are sitting around waiting for this stuff. So I don't know, administratively, how you incent building administrators and whoever else, special ed directors or technology directors, to get their stuff to the business office on time. I'm bringing it up now in March because in 3 months the school year is going to close, and I just want to make sure we have a system in place that's going to do that.
I think there's a little bit of misconception.
Yeah, I was going to ask for a clarification on that one.
We have to keep our books open until August 31st because there's certain things that come in revenue-wise and expense-wise that we have to book back to the prior year.
Such
So-
as? That wouldn't come
Special
in.
ed. Special ed is often one of them.
Special ed, and honestly, yes, special ed invoices are late, but it's not the special ed director's fault. It's the people billing. I mean, I can tell you,
Used to be in
I
every
just got
district I've
stuff
ever
for
been
like
in that's been a
December, and we're
problem.
already in March. So it's not that she's holding it. It's if you look at the stamp date that she got it in, it's when the people are billing us.
Places like
And,
Devereaux,
also,
places like Buxma, all these places that we don't have any control over, they bill us
Right,
when they're
and we
written
have
already.
to-
Don't happen. This-
Well, and we also have to wait till we do all our summer pays, which is usually into the first pay, sometimes in August, that we're still back charging salaries.
Is
from
there any
last
way we
year
could
and
encumber that money that would help that, or does that matter?
encumbering
we used to do
doesn't-
that.
So basically, there's
encumbering-
nothing we can do. You have to leave the books open anyway.
Yeah.
Well, at least till the 31st. I
That's what I
mean,
mean.
and then
So can you
then
say
there's still auditors that come in September, and there's still going to be
Correct.
adjustments. So
But the
Well, I mean,
adjustments
but-
are the minor stuff.
Adjustments are minor, and
Sometimes,
and you
yeah.
need to sort of move on with the.
So can you set a deadline of August 31st?
we do. We actually sometimes do it before we send out emails say we want it in by this date.
This is it.
We
If
know
you
it's
don't
August-
have anything, if
Well,
It
then-
gets charged to the new year. We already do
Then do it
that.
on,
do that.
here's what I was
I guess
I was
what I'm
unaware-
trying to do is I realize this was a concern in the fall, and I just want to make sure whatever we can do to help. That's
Set
what
a
I'm trying to
deadline.
I just
facilitate.
don't think I'm
No.
going to be able to get you anything earlier.
No, here's what I would do. I would also say August 15th.
I'm trying to get you guys stuff.
Yeah,
over,
he's trying to get to you.
Right, but I think we're getting it as early
Okay.
as
I was
we
gonna say,
can.
I was unaware of
It's
anybody
the turnaround
being
time to
negligent.
get you numbers that you want. I mean, September is really early, and it's probably.
Yeah,
I can give you a preliminary, but
honestly, we're probably one of the first schools that Herbine does closes out
Okay.
per year. Believe it or not,
I believe it.
we are ready to go. Because we've been with them, we get kind of choice time. If you want to call it that, they always come in right as school's starting.
Yeah, what I'm saying though is in terms of like, in terms of a finance committee trying to like readjust for the next year, right? I think one of the things is because budgets change. I don't need a certified auditor statement in terms of the budget to start
Understood.
looking at.
So you could say.
How
But
we
it-
did.
But by like by this, well, if they're early, it depends. I
Okay.
could have you something at the September Finance Committee that's preliminary.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand that at the time that's going on, we're starting budget too, so we're trying to
Okay, here's the question I have asked. I guess by the middle of September, you give a preliminary final thing to Herbine, right, for them to start the audit.
Well, no, they get it actually. They get a prelim in June before
Whatever,
it ends, and then they come in
you
September.
come back in August though after everybody submits stuff.
We have a pretty good
So
idea.
if you could give about what you got to write on there, This is a tentative final.
Tentative,
It's a tentative
before
final
audit
number.
adjustments.
Right.
Correct.
That's what I'm
That-
saying. I could
that would help you
I
out.
could possibly have that
Us.
to the
We're on the
finance
board, too.
But see,
committee by
but again, that
September.
helps. But you and I understand what that means. You got to make sure other board members know that
Right.
is subject to change. That is subject to auditors'
And
change.
it's not just necessarily what's getting out to the board. I'm saying giving finance committee an opportunity
No,
to
I
kind of do
agree
a
with
year in
what-
review.
I agree with
and
what you're
see-
saying, but see, your concern, and I understand your concern, is that you float that or you put that out there. So 4 weeks later, Herbine comes in and make adjustments. You go back and say, "Now here's what the number should have been
Say
when I
there's
get
a
to
big
September."
adjustment one
Correct.
way or
then,
another.
then you guys are like, "Wait, and you don't want anybody to go after you. This is what it was when you gave it out. It's unaudited. It's
Yeah, look,
that,
it's an estimate.
you and I understand what that is. Some people might not understand what that is. That's the thing you got to do, and you could write unaudited or whatever draft, and those people have to
Uncertified.
understand. Thank you. You have to understand that that's subject to change.
Right.
Now, are there any things, I mean, are you guys saying now that there aren't any things that are hanging chads out there that you
No,
guys need to
probably not.
administratively?
Hanging chads.
to-
Make me think of Al Gore.
Other than
Get done.
the companies that aren't getting them.
But that
because-
again-
No,
we
okay, well,
can't do
that's
anything
something
else.
administratively we can address with the companies, right? You can say, hey, look, you need to get this payment to us by this date. If you don't, there's a penalty of, whatever, we're
Yeah,
discounting
but
the
she's
note.
talking about getting invoices.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but-
I do that in my business. I say, if you don't get your invoice to me by this date, I start discounting 1.5% off the top of the invoice. Because I've got billing I got to take care of.
You can do that, but
I've gotta
the problem with
manage
that
my
is most
cash
of those institutions are probably always 2 months behind in billing. That's again, you're talking about some places like
Devereaux.
some medical field and all that. They're always 2 months behind. That's the nature of the beast.
I mean,
Special
we
ed
really do
institutions
contact
are
Yeah.
everybody.
notorious for that.
and
I don't
Yeah,
think
because they
it's
want to
down
make sure
to- I'm
that
not
they
doubting
have all the paperwork
I mean,
for the
as
bill.
far as even
And they don't
like
have the staff.
internally,
No,
you
they
need
don't.
to
No,
have
no.
all the invoices to us. And we really kind of feel it's their responsibility. If we don't have something and they know it's out there, you need to call and you
Correct.
need to get us
Because
an
we don't
invoice.
know.
But see, but again, like Gary said, some of those places don't have the staff power even to bill. They're always 2 months behind. I mean, that's just the nature of the
Yeah,
beast.
but they can move us to the top of the
Well,
list.
you can ask them, but
That's true.
what you
I
could do
would
is you
agree
could howl
with that.
me.
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to get you anything earlier than September anyway.
No, that makes sense.
I just don't want it going forward that our people aren't doing their due diligence getting us our
No,
information.
I'm more
That's-
concerned that you float something out to
That
board members and they
was
think
the
that's
case
final.
But we've
originally when
corrected
this
that.
discussion came up.
Right, but we've-
that has corrected with the exception of the vendors
Right.
causing the issue.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
is there anything, if you guys think there's anything, that's what, all I'm saying is, if you guys think there's anything that we can do administratively to help you
I'll
get
go
those
do a roundup
vendor
if I have to, but I think
things
our guys are doing their
faster.
job.
then,
If it actually be
obviously, I think it'd make your jobs easier to get those things in June or July and August as opposed to wait until September to get them, right? When you're focusing on
Right.
the audit and all that other kind of stuff.
and really, once the auditors come in, we try very hard to have everything finished when
Sure.
they come in, and including the adjustments, that they do nothing but
Right, so it's easier for you to get these things
Verify.
earlier than later.
Which it's just September, July,
Well, if you
August,
guys wanna-
September, and October are very.
All I'm saying is if you guys
Full
want
state watch
to,
it.
Full months.
identify 2 or 3 vendors that you think, are
Like a watch.
slow in getting stuff out to us, then I think administratively, we sick the dogs on them and say, look, guys, this year, it can't wait until whatever the date was last
I
year.
can
It's
look
got to
at it.
come in and,
Oh, I see when I signed some of them.
well, I can, but too, I can even look at AP and see what is consistently in there as payables at the end.
yeah, I'm not trying to make more work for you.
Oh no, that
So
would
if you don't want to do it, that's fine too. I was just trying to make life easier,
It's fine.
so.
Yeah,
I
we're
agree
all
with
about
you.
it at
We're-
that time.
No, but
Because
I
I would like to start July 1 and get all the audit stuff done, but I know I can't because you got all the stuff coming in. So we do what
a
we
lot
can.
of it is salary
but-
stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Does anybody else have
Fine
anything else?
suggestion.
Kevin, Monica, Dr. Otto, do you have anything else?
Just
Public? Sorry, didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
I'm just glad we're moving forward with some budget meetings.
Okay, anything else, Tom?
The only thing I have to say is, for you to be within 1.5%, which is about it, you're talking about a $50 million budget. I think the business office is doing a good job, the administration's doing a good job, and the finance. To be that close,
There you go.
when you have so many variables, when you're making the budget up, so I don't want to leave I want to put that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's on the record.
Thank you.
Okay.
Still running.
4 nights this week now. I haven't seen my family since Sunday.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Are we done?
I think we're done.
8:35, meeting end.
Fast and furious.